The favourite to be the next Liverpool manager is now much less likely. The latest on the dance sensation, Luke Littler. There's too many L's in this.
It's another day of heavy showers this Good Friday, but as we go through the Easter weekend, it should turn a little drier and just a little bit warmer. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Now, would I find being called glamorous offensive?
No.
No, I definitely wouldn't. But apparently it's on the banned list.
Oh, really?
Apparently you can't call women at work glamorous.
Really?
Which I do all the time in this place. Lots of glamorous women walking these halls of GB News. Yes, this is a lady called Jennifer Campbell. She's a barrister and a former beauty pageant winner. She is very attractive. She's basically gone to an employment tribunal saying that her boss was undermining her and belittling her by calling her glamorous at work.
I don't think she looks very glamorous.
Stephen!
I don't.
The picture's too small to share with you, but she's peroxide blonde with eyelashes and one you can't see. But yeah, she's all the way down here, this little thumbnail. Right there.
Mutton and lamb springs to mind.
Stephen!
I'm sorry, it does.
Behave yourself.
It's true.
But apparently it was taken as undermining and belittling, and it made her feel less serious and professional. And she won her case.
She's won? I think that's crazy. This is where the world's gone mad. You can't...
Yeah. Glamorous is on the banned list.
You can't say anyone's glamorous. You can't wolf whistle at anyone now.
Oh, I don't like a wolf whistle.
Oh, don't you?
No, I don't like that. That can go on the banned list.
Oh, I'd love to be wolf whistled.
Would you?
Yes. Why not? Bring it on.
Oh, no, I don't like that.
Anyone wants to wolf whistle me, I'm all for it.
Oh, well,
Mind
there you go.
I'll tell you who's a glamorous granny.
Who?
Sylvia Homewood.
Oh, yeah.
And she's had... Well, it's Easter, isn't it? So she's had the back of her head done like a Cadbury's cream egg.
Don't tell me that's the back of her head.
That's the back of her head. That's you. There you go.
Stop.
There you go. And let me just...
She dyed it?
She's been to a hairdresser and he's dyed her hair. She's 88.
Oh, I think she's lost her mind.
And that's
what are you doing? What's her name? Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Oh, Sylvia, what are you doing?
So there you
She must really love cream eggs. Yeah. A bit like you. Would you do that?
Well, no, I wouldn't, no. I've had enough cream eggs this week.
Did she say why? What compelled her?
Well, no, she's had Scottish tartan in her hair before and other bits and bobs. So she likes to go for these creative looks. Oh. Well, that's very clever.
She says it's all about pushing the boundaries.
Ooh.
And if you want to get ahead, get a cream egg. Very good.
You could do something glamorous with your hair.
No,
like that. Oh, I
I'm
can't
quite
say
happy
glamorous.
With mine. Thank you.
Something interesting with your hair.
You can't say glamorous anymore.
No.
Not allowed.
What else can't you say?
What can you say now?
Oh, you look adequate this morning.
Oh, you look smart.
Smart?
Probably say you look smart.
Yes.
Professional.
I love your pearly queen outfit this morning.
Thank you. It's very Christmassy, isn't it?
It's quite Christmassy.
Looks like I'm in the wrong season. Maybe I need a cream egg outfit. We should have gone purple today.
She messaged me last night and said, what colour should we wear? Whatever you want.
Red.
We'll wear red. But then you have pointed out this morning we do look like an advert for the Labour Party.
That we
do. This morning.
Yes.
No political affiliations can be assumed from my outfits.
No, very true.
If you were in tomorrow, we should wear blue, but you're not in, are you?
I'm not in tomorrow. Can I just say, I'm meant to be on annual leave today, but I heard that Stephen Dixon was going to be here.
I was going to be on my own.
Because Anne Diamond's on annual leave as well. So I thought, well, I can't let that be the case, so here I am. So I am going to keep talking about that. And I'm doing it for you, darling.
I'm very grateful.
It's all for you.
There you go. You see, she'd rather be with me than on holiday with a fiancé.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't do this. You would do the same for me.
I would. Yeah. Right, we better crack on. Enough of this nonsense this morning.
Yes.
Michael Gove has called Thames Water bosses a disgrace after the firm asked to increase customers' bills by, wait for it, 40% to plug a major funding gap.
For years now, we've seen the customers of Thames Water taken advantage of by successive management teams that have been taking out profits and not investing as they should have been. So the answer is not to hit the consumers. The answer is for the management team to look to their own approach and ask themselves why they're in this difficult situation. And, of course, the answer is because of serial mismanagement for which they must carry the can.
Well, the firm's bosses have admitted it could face the risk of emergency nationalisation as its cash crisis deepens.
Shareholders have refused to give the company £500 million of extra financing, describing the rescue plan as uninvestable.
Well, instead, shareholders want the regulator Ofwat to increase customers' bills by up to 40% over the next 5 years.
Let's talk to senior political analyst for Orthodox Conservatives, David Moore, who's here. Good to see you this morning. I mean, this is a disgrace, isn't it?
It is an absolute disgrace. A company that's wrapped up to £14 billion in debt is telling residents and hard-working taxpayers to pay a 40% increase in their bills because of their incompetence. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And as a Buckinghamshire councillor, where Thames Water is a utility company, I've been trying to hold them to account for so long, and they've been so slow, so inefficient, and despite the fact my local MP set up an action group to hold them to account, they've been slow, and now they're trying to put a bigger bill on. And this is the problem when you have foreign equity that is dictating our public utilities and now deciding to foot the bill higher to our hard-working residents. And I think it's absolutely unacceptable.
What do you think is going to happen next, then? Because shareholders had agreed to invest £500 million by Sunday. Well, that's not going to happen, is it?
Well, we had this conversation in summer of 23 where they obviously asked for more money and they'll keep asking for more money. I think what's going to have to happen is perhaps a 51% stake by the government and maybe a 49% stake in private shares to actually get some proper, efficient services going again.
Yeah, but what does that do to solve the problems? I mean, it's almost like a bailout, isn't it? What does that actually do to solve the problems of Thames Water?
Well, I think a government should fund it by equity only, or, as Jacob Rees-Mogg has, I think, quite rightfully put, maybe it should have to go bankrupt instead of continue with this joke this fast, because it's costing people loads of money, it's costing the taxpayer loads of money, and it's creating a national conversation about our public utilities and how we should manage them.
Would you agree with that? Do you think it should go bankrupt?
I would actually, yes, because it's just kicking the can down the road at this point, and it needs to be a clean cut where Thames Water needs a complete revamp. It's, you know, it's a multi-billion-pound revenue operation, and yet it's just taking in more and more money from residents and not giving the proper services as a public utilities company with a social responsibility to those who pay those bills.
But it's just yet another example, isn't it? All these years on from privatisation, where now we've got, you know, looking at renationalisation of one water company at least. You're looking at, there's a strong argument being made for the renationalisation of rail. There's already questions about energy companies and how that system is currently working. Was nationalisation wrong as a long-term plan, privatisation wrong as a long-term plan back in the 80s and 90s?
Well, I think nationalisation has to be done pragmatically and strategically to the national interest. So when you have a situation where our water companies are owned by Canadian pension funds or Abu Dhabi private equity firms, there is a question to say, is that integral to our strategic security for our water supply, for our railways? And even, you know, we see with our steel industry as well, that's collapsing now, and we saw that's owned by foreign investors. You know, we should try and get some homegrown capital to fund in these companies who have a stake in keeping it homegrown and British.
But in a sense, the way the system is meant to work, it shouldn't matter who owns it, so long as it's being run properly and effectively, which this clearly isn't.
Well, I think it should be both. It needs to be run effectively, and it should have some patriotic investment in my eyes, because quite frankly, it's a British public utility to serve British taxpayers, and that's what it needs to do, and it's clearly not fitting the bill at the moment.
The Labour Party has said it's the government which has weakened regulation, allowing water companies to get massively in debt, whilst the sewage system has crumbled and illegal sewage dumping has hit record levels. What do you make of that? Is this the government's fault?
So Labour can't talk, because I think it was 2009 they were taken to court by ECHR for sewage pumping into rivers. This has been a successive problem. It's not a party-level problem for the last 20 and 30 years. And quite frankly, I think what we need to do now is start to have that national conversation about public utility companies and the future for those.
Yeah, but again, with this, it's you can forgive people at home for going, well, what on earth is going on? If it's been a problem, you know, a serious problem since the Labour years, why has nobody tackled it?
Well, it's a good question. I've been asking the same question. I know for a fact there are MPs and the Conservatives who are actually tackling this, especially MPs where the constituencies are covered by Thames Water. I know for a fact they're working hard to try and hold Thames Water to account. But ultimately, you may be able to hold them to account at a local level. But like you say, it's a top-level problem with its ownership situation, and that's what we've seen. And a massive mismanagement of funds, especially you see the salaries of some of these top dogs working at Thames Water and their HQ in Reading. It's just shocking, really shocking. And I'll hold them to account as in my capacity as a councillor as well. And I want to see some positive change for my residents because they're getting sick of it, and we need this change soon. So.
I'm sure there's so many people who are absolutely sick of it. 15 million households Thames Water serves. And I'm sure there's many of you at home who are feeling the same way. Do let us know what you make of this story. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, David, thanks very much indeed. Thames Water have said in response, we'd like to reassure our customers that despite this announcement, it is business as usual for Thames Water. Our 8,000 staff remain committed to working with our partners in the supply chain to provide our services for the benefit of our customers, communities and the environment.
Now, Tory MPs are quitting politics as they find pressures of the job, the hostility on social media and death threats totally exhausting.
Well, that's what Dame Andrea Leadsom said to our political editor, Christopher Hope, on his latest podcast.
Here's a snippet of what to expect of that interview.
63 Tory MPs have resigned so far, quitting. Will it go more than...
Not resigned.
No,
they're standing down
at the
the
election.
next election. That's a very different matter, Christopher.
It's the first... Sorry, thank you for chiding me. The first planned election since 2015, so maybe expected.
Yes.
Or not, or perhaps an indictment of the party's polling ratings. I mean, will it be more than the 75 who went in 97, do you think?
I mean, I think those standing down this time, it is a function for many people of their time in office. You know, we've already seen statistically your lifespan as an MP is significantly shorter than it used to be. And the reason for that is, of course, the pressures of the job and, of course, the hostility of social media, the death threats, people genuinely find it exhausting. I find it exhausting. I mean, even as a, sunlit uplands person as I am,
yes. I
wake up some days and think, oh, really?
You get daily threats, do you? I mean,
well, yes. I mean, not sort of daily threats, but I've had death threats. I've had paper death threats with, we know where you live sort of thing. I've had people spitting at me outside Parliament. It's pretty revolting. Yeah. And then that idiot in the EU hat who just screams abuse. I'm not even going to say his name. Don't say it, Chris.
I won't.
But, he screams abuse all day long, naming me, just literally publicly. It's just disgusting, frankly, the way politicians are held in such contempt. So I'm not surprised people have had enough at all. And obviously some of them are just fed up because they can see that, their polling situation isn't good. So obviously some of that. But this is nothing like in 2010 with the expenses scandal where half of the Conservatives, more than half, I think, were new people. And that was my intake, 2010.
Yes.
And I think a lot of those people, we've been in politics for 14 years. A lot of us have had enough. And as for those who've been in even longer than that, many of them are just saying, nah, time to call it a day.
Yes.
Well, Chopper's political podcast is available right now, wherever you get your downloads from.
Now, police are investigating a suspected food poisoning outbreak at a prison after 15 inmates and staff fell ill after eating a curry following an Easter service.
Ambulance, police and fire services all attended the scene at HMP Lewis near Brighton.
Well, we're now joined by retired prison governor Vanessa Frake. Very good to see you this morning, Vanessa. And what's your reaction to this story?
Well, it's a bit of an unusual one, really, isn't it? I'm kind of lost for words. I seem to hear every day something at some prison or another, usually derogatory, usually bad news. I am looking forward to the day that I can hear some good news about the prison service. I mean, I don't think we can make judgment on what caused it. They say, I think they've sent the food off for testing and we'll have to wait for the results of that. I do believe the paramedics thought that it could have been spiked in the kitchen, but I think that's been ruled out. And it may have just been a dodgy chicken curry.
Well, yes. I mean, and in a way, that's the best case scenario, isn't it? Yeah. But I mean, the reports of people slurring their words, being giddy, being in distress. I mean, it has raised the question as to whether it could be anything more sinister, which... Is that even a possibility within the prison, that something vindictive like that could happen?
Well, it could be. I mean, it could be because of the very nature of what it was. Quite often in a jail after a big religious occasion, whether that be Diwali or the end of Ramadan or Easter, they have a meal to celebrate whatever religious festival it is. So it could be that somebody spiked it in the kitchen. But like I said, I can't really comment on that until the results have come back from the tests on the actual food.
But all this following on from that investigation in the Times yesterday, which you probably saw, in which a journalist sort of got recruited into the prison service, but by one of these third-party companies, and said, you know, no real vetting, no security checks going in and out the prison. It raises a lot of concerns. You would expect things to be tighter, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. I mean, I don't know whether the actual meal was prepared in the kitchen. I would suspect it is. Sometimes they're bought in. It depends. But, yeah, I mean, it's a catalogue of events, isn't it, really? And unfortunately, when you get poor security measures, you end up with like the escape, such as Wandsworth last September and October, when there are serious failings. You know, usually it tightens everything up, but it doesn't appear so in this case, unless, of course, it was just a dodgy chicken curry.
But, I mean, there must have been concern amongst the staff yesterday about security because this major incident was declared. We've got reports that the whole prison went into lockdown. How would staff have reacted to that when inmates started falling ill so quickly?
Well, that is a natural occurrence. You know, you have contingency plans for that. And that is a natural thing because you need to concentrate what staff you've got on whatever emergency it is. So that is nothing unusual. And obviously, because they were sending so many prisoners out to get checked out at hospital, then the police were involved. So that is like the norm, really. It's not. It seems like a big hoo-ha, but actually it's the norm because you've got to maintain the security of the jail.
OK, Vanessa, as always, it's good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Well, HMP Lewis have said, we are working with the emergency services to deal with a suspected food poisoning incident at HMP Lewis.
Now, in other news this morning, the Tavistock Gender Identity Development Service is closing for good this weekend, 2 years after a damning report highlighted major concerns.
Well, our reporter Ray Addison looked back at the history of the controversial NHS service.
The Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic will finally close its doors on Sunday. It follows severe criticism that it gave some of the most vulnerable members of society treatments that lacked sufficient safety or clinical effectiveness. It was the brainchild of psychiatrist Dr. Domenico Dicelli, inspired by a single case of a teenager who claimed she was a boy in a female body.
He told me, when I was a child, I had all these differences, and my parents should have seen it. Why didn't they do anything about it? But that implanted me the idea of creating a service for children and adolescents.
From its launch in 1989, with just a handful of referrals, it grew into the largest children's gender clinic in the world, referring around 2,000 for puberty blockers, but failing to follow up to see how they were doing. It also ignored the concerns of staff, some of whom became whistleblowers. Formal concerns were first raised in 2005 by therapist Sue Evans.
My concerns back then was actually around a 16-year-old child that I had seen referred after 4 sessions for a hormone therapy treatment. It is strange that such a powerful medication could be given on such a small level of assessment.
Yes. 2/3 of the clinic's patients were female, and they often had an underlying mental health condition. But the clinic stopped providing therapy and focused on a medical pathway. There was also concern that patient support groups, such as transgender charity Mermaids, had undue influence, which they've denied. In 2018, a devastating report by Dr. David Bell concluded that the service was not fit for purpose. The following year, a legal challenge brought by former patient Kira Bell questioned if children could properly consent to treatment. That ultimately failed, but it caught the attention of the media.
My hope was that outside of the noise of the culture wars, the report would shine a light on this harmful experiment on vulnerable children and young people. These drugs seriously harm me in more ways than one, and they have harmed many more, particularly young girls and women.
In September 2020, NHS England announced an independent review by Dr. Hilary Cass. She found that options other than gender transitioning were not being explored, and staff felt under pressure not to question parents' and children's assumptions. Finally, in July 2022, NHS England announced it would be closing the clinic and opening new regional services offering psychosocial and psychological support, but not medical. For some, the closure will come too late, their bodies forever changed by an NHS service which failed to protect them. Ray Addison, GB News.
Right, should we see what the weather's going to do?
Let's, with Alex Deacon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also. But many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it's the final day to see how you could win our massive spring giveaway with gadgets, a shopping spree, a pizza oven and £12,345 in cash. It's all up for grabs. Lines close at 5 p.m. today, so make sure you don't miss out. Here's all the entry details.
It's the final day to see how you could win big.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. I sent a text through my mobile phone. It was just amazing. As soon as it goes into your bank account, it's fantastic.
There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Along with £500 in shopping vouchers, you'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. today. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. today. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Do you think cash turns up in a big bundle like that?
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be lovely.
Wrapped up in a bow.
And then you just flick through it.
That's what you want for Easter. Lovely. Rather that than an egg.
Oh, just as well, because you said about buying you an egg and I haven't done.
No, I've got to get you one as well. Sorry.
Yeah, so no, it's fine. It's fine.
Andrew said that to Natalie this morning. Didn't I, Natalie? Back me up. I said, yes.
That's our producer, by the way.
In our ear, yes. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Maybe we can get one in the sale.
Oh, that's much more sensible.
Okay.
Now, plans for a skyscraper in Birmingham have caused outrage. Find out why in just a moment.
Yes.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 6:28 now. Public consultation ends today on plans for a new Birmingham skyscraper, which would be built over the top of a Grade 2 listed former hospital.
Well, the controversial design has caused both outrage and delight. And our West Midlands reporter Jack Carson has the story.
Birmingham is reaching for the stars. If all current plans go ahead, the city could soon be home to at least 20 skyscrapers, second only to Greater London. But one of these planned towers set to emerge in the cityscape is quite literally over the top. On Broad Street, known for its vibrant nightlife, sits this Grade 2 listed former hospital, which, if plans are approved, could see a 42-storey skyscraper built directly above it. The plans are striking for this now abandoned former bar, restaurant and nightclub, and Ashley Gill, who has a wealth of experience in developing grade-listed buildings, says it's a positive move to get the building back into use.
Some of the hoops that we've got to jump through are becoming a little bit ridiculous. So if they relax some of these rules, then I'm sure a lot of these old buildings would get snapped up and renovated. And the fact that you're preserving the listed building, then it's got to be a plus. And it's just a new one for me as well. I've never seen anything like it. I'm sure it'll be impressive when they get it done.
Dating back to the early 19th century, the former Royal Orthopaedic Hospital, known as Islington Villa, has been vacant since the previous business closed in 2020. Falling into disrepair, planning, design and development consultancy Marrons, on behalf of HJB Investments, have submitted the blueprints that would see the construction of a 133.5-metre tower with 300 build-to-rent homes and restoration of the historic building. Those behind the plans say a flexible community facility and a viewing platform with cafe and exhibition area would bring the protected building back into public use. But reacting to the prospective development, residents here are unsure of the dramatic architectural plans.
I think it's very sad because I think it's a beautiful building. It is a listed building, and I think it's a tragedy to interfere with it, really. It should be used for perhaps some other purposes rather than be spoilt in that way.
I don't think they look visually appealing. Personally, I've walked past this building a few times and I think they should repurpose the building just as it is.
Well, just seems a bit ridiculous. Plenty of other uses you could have used it for. Apparently it used to be an NHS doctor's place. You could use it for that again. That'd be nice.
To supplement the planning application, a heritage impact assessment has been completed. but the chance for public comments on these plans ends today, with a decision expected to be made within weeks. Jack Carson, GB News, Birmingham.
Got to say, I think it looks quite nice.
Yeah, so do I.
That skyscraper. And if the building isn't being used now and it brings it all back into use, I don't know. I sort of think that looks all right.
I think that looks quite good.
Might be.
I quite like a skyscraper, though. I think they look nice.
Yeah. Oh, well, if you've got a view on that, especially if you live in the area, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com. Paul Coit has got your sport. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Bruno Tonali.
Yes.
Is the person people are talking about at the moment. Bruno Tonali, Italian midfielder, signed for Newcastle. There's Bruno there. It's one of the only 14 games that he's played for Newcastle because he was banned in October for 10 months after being found guilty of gambling on matches when he was playing for AC Milan. Now, obviously, you can't be gambling on football matches when you're a professional footballer or anything to do around there because, obviously, the main argument is match fixing. Now, where we are at the moment is that he's out, so he's not allowed to play. But now there's a new charge, and this is from the FA, and this has actually happened since he's been in this country. So he's been charged with 50 betting offences between August and October. So he's already had the problem in Italy, and now it's happened over here.
It doesn't look good, does it? That record.
It really doesn't. But the thing is, now we start moving into another area. It's not like, well, you know, you shouldn't be betting and you should be banned. But this sounds like a lad that's actually got problems with gambling. Absolutely. Paul Merson, legendary Paul Merson, he's faced this problem before, and he'd spoken out recently about Ivan Toney and said, you know, you shouldn't be banning these players, but they should be getting help.
Some help, yeah.
But also you do, unfortunately, I mean, however bad it is and however bad the problem is, you can't also say, well, you know, we're not going to ban you because then it's going to there's going to be more players that might get involved in this.
Yeah, but it's difficult to assess, isn't it, looking at this, whether he has got a problem, whether he's just being a bit greedy.
Well, surely the stupidity would be unbelievable. If you've got to the point where you've been done for it in Italy and then you've come over here and you've got this ban facing you and then you're caught gambling again, you'd probably look... I mean, it's easy for me to say, but you'd look at the evidence and then go, well, it looks like there's a problem there.
A stupid and not thinking it through 23-year-old Paul?
Have I never, ever heard of such a thing? Especially professional football.
When we were that age, we were extremely sensible.
Yes, absolutely.
But no, I don't know. Well,
it looks like it's a very uncomfortable story. And who's it worse for? Newcastle spent 52 million on this player who only played 14 games. So at the end of this, what are the FA going to do? They're going to add another ban on the top? Who knows?
Yeah.
Should we talk about our lovely Luke Littler?
Yes, lovely Luke Littler.
Easy for you two to say.
I know.
Lovely Luke
Everything begins with L today.
I know.
He's 17 now. He won the Darts Premier League night in Belfast last night. So a little update on him. So he beat Luke Humphries in the quarterfinal. Remember, Luke Humphries was the one who won the world title, who he managed to beat. So there's Luke. There we are. Look at him. I still can't believe he's only 17.
I know.
What would you... If you looked at him...
You thought he was a lot older, didn't you?
I did think he was... I did think he was a lot older.
Yeah, I did as well. I was with you. But you, Ellie, always thought he looked even younger, didn't you?
I think he does have a little baby face. I think he does look...
Baby face with whiskers.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby face with whiskers.
I couldn't grow a beard like that now.
He's got a huge career ahead of him, though. It's just the start.
The thing is, he got... I don't know whether it's me, but you think of how much money there is in professional sport, and last night, so winning the Premier League in Belfast, 10 grand.
Oh, 10 grand?
It sounds like to any of us to earn 10 grand in a night, you'd think fantastic, but you think for these well-known professional sports people...
Yeah.
It's probably not a lot of money for them, is it?
It's not really, is it? So anyway, he beat Michael van Gerwen, Nathan Aspinall in the final, £10,000 prize, but you are right, a huge future ahead of him. Should he keep his head straight, because that's the way.
He only needs to win 10 a year. All right.
That's not bad, is it? All right. A few of those, probably a few more for the world title and stuff.
He's got his feet on the ground, though, doesn't he? I don't think he'll let it get to his head.
He's a sensible lad.
He does. But as Casey Kasem always said, keep your feet on the ground and reach for the stars.
Ah, very good.
Very good.
What's happening with Xabi Alonso?
Yeah, now... Xabi Alonso, who is the manager of Bayer Leverkusen, former Liverpool and Bayern Munich midfielder, one of the greatest players of his era, but a really, really great manager. So he takes over at Bayer Leverkusen in Germany, relegation zone. They are now top of the Bundesliga by 10 points.
Really?
So now everybody's interested in him. And the fact that he played for Liverpool, you'd think, well, now Jurgen Klopp is going, maybe he's the guy to take over. But also Bayern Munich, who have lost their manager, he's also wanted there. But after all this talk, he said he actually looks like he wants to stay at Bayer Leverkusen for another year.
Yeah.
But what do? Do you stay there, or do you go for the big money and you go for the big job now? Because maybe, who knows, Bayer Leverkusen might not have a good season next year, and then his stock may have fallen. Would you go for the big one?
It's tricky. I'd probably go for the big
You go
one.
for,
Yeah,
of course
go
you
for
would.
the
You
big
go for
job.
Follow the money.
I think you will. I think this is all a bit of a smokescreen. I think there'll probably be more money coming in. There'll be more money coming in. OK, I'll go to Liverpool. Yeah. We'll see.
It's how you operate.
That's how I operate.
He's playing it right.
I do, yeah.
Larry Lloyd.
Oh,
Very
Larry
sad.
Lloyd.
Yeah.
See, from Luke Littler, young Luke Littler, to the late Larry Lloyd. And Larry Lloyd, great defender for Nottingham Forest and played for Liverpool as well. Passed away at the age of 75. There's Larry. Look at Larry there. That was when Larry won the European Cup, obviously now the Champions League, back in 79 and 1980, signed by Brian Clough. Real tough man as well. And you know what he did when he finished his career, as all footballers used to do in the old days? Ran a pub.
Yeah.
That's what they all seem to do. They don't do that anymore. I don't think you're going to get anybody running a pub these days. Xabi Alonso wouldn't really run a pub, or a beer keller maybe.
I'm just wondering if... So I'm going... because you know...
Hello, what's up?
Larry Lloyd. Yeah. Do you know what? I think I used to know Larry Lloyd.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
You'd kind of know, wouldn't you?
Well, no, because you know what I'm like with... Because he ran... If I'm right, and he ran a pub in Nottingham...
Yeah.
Because when I used to work in Nottingham at Trent FM back in the day...
You're probably right.
I'm sure we used to hang about with Larry and go to his pub. He was quite a chunky fella.
He was a very big fella. He wasn't, and then he became a very big fella, and then a little lesser. Larry Lloyd, shall we say.
You're looking at his picture. I think it was Larry that we used to hang about with.
What a small
Isn't that
world!
funny? Because I'm
poor Larry.
I knew nothing about football back then.
Yeah.
So it was just, this is Larry. He runs a pub. He used to play for Forest.
This is Larry.
And it was just like, oh, all right then.
Yeah, he's won a couple of European Cups and won the Premier League title as it was the First Division. Larry
the name was
Lloyd.
familiar.
There you go, Larry Lloyd.
Wow.
Oh, well, there you go.
It was either that or you're thinking, what was that, Larry Lamb? Or,
No, not
I
Larry
knew.
Lamb.
Or Larry the Lamb. No, it was Larry Lloyd. He was, honestly, he was a terrific character and a proper hard man. I've got some stories about Larry Lloyd. Do you want to see? Have we got time for a little snowboarding?
Yeah,
go on.
You're telling us about all the young ones today.
It is. Well, the snowboarding here. Now, this is Jakub Kuba. That's his nickname. I don't know what Kuba means. Hrones.
Hrones.
And have a look at this. Jakub Kuba Hrones has got cojones to do such a thing. The world first triple flip off a rail.
Wow.
There he goes.
Wow.
Look at that. Unbelievable. He thinks it's clever. I used to do that back in the 1980s. Easy.
Look at him.
Look at it.
Wow.
He can't believe it. He actually can't believe he's done it. There we go.
Believe he's still alive.
I know. There we are. That's a rail. So it is. It's a rail. It's very, very thin. You count them. He's landed it. First time it's ever been done. And that's in his hometown of Spindlerův Mlyn in the Czech Republic.
You just go for these weird places.
You know I make half of this up.
Yeah, I know.
You know I do, don't you?
Oh, good on him.
There we go.
He made it look easy, didn't he?
He did make it look easy. You should have seen him try before. Though.
As do you, Paul.
Got lucky
Boyd.
that time.
As do you.
Oh, bless you.
Right, we'll see you later on.
Thank you.
Now, it's Good Friday today. You need to eat fish and not meat.
Well, I don't eat either.
Oh, well, you're a veggie, so that's fine. I'll be going to the chippy today. We're going to be discussing how eating more fish each week could save the NHS £600 million. That's very good as well, isn't it? That's next in Making the News with Nigel Nelson and Claire Pearsall.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Greg Edwards. On London Underground, severe delays on the Northern Line between Golders Green and Camden because of late finishing engineering work. On the trains, no Greater Anglia services between Liverpool Street and both Cambridge and Stansted Airport because of overhead wire problems. Great Western Railway services suffering cancellations between Newbury and Westbury because of flooding. Lots of engineering work affecting the trains today. Best to check before you travel. Particularly, there's no long distance Avanti West Coast or London North Western services from London Euston because of engineering work. On the roads, the A1M is closed northbound for roadworks between Junction 6 at Welling and Junction 7 at Stevenage South. And at Radstock, the A367 is closed because of an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going to look through the papers now, and the Times leads with the government telling Thames Water bosses to clean up their own mess and not push the cost onto consumers, who now face bills increasing by 40% to avoid nationalisation.
The Guardian has the UN ordering Israel to unblock aid flowing into Gaza, the population facing starvation and famine.
The Mail leads with Angela Rayner under pressure to release details of her controversial property dealings and also facing allegations that she may have dodged tax.
Onto the Telegraph, the Prime Minister coming under fire by opposition parties for giving a knighthood in this strange honours list, which has come out of nowhere, really. Anyway, he's given a knighthood to a top Tory donor who gave him £5 million.
And the newspaper also leads with taxpayers potentially being forced to bail out Thames Water as customers face a 40% increase in bills.
All right, let's talk through some of those then with our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, and former government advisor, Claire Pearsall. Good to see you both this morning. Nigel, let's kick off with Thames Water, shouldn't we? Because this is, frankly, whatever your political views or anything else, this is a disgrace.
Yes, it is. I mean, I think that the word that Michael Gove used, disgrace, and, you know, these fat cat water bosses who are making huge profits. Yes, absolutely. So the question is what the answer is to it. If the shareholders don't want to invest into the company, which they don't. So there's, you know, £500 million that it needs desperately.
By Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. So it's unlikely to actually get there by that time. The taxpayer certainly shouldn't be picking up the tab for this. So the answer should be to nationalise it.
But forgive me, but doesn't that mean the taxpayer is picking up the tab?
Well, the taxpayer is picking up the tab for the company. They need to be compensated. But the whole point about nationalisation is then the taxpayer owns the company. So from then onwards, you would actually recoup your money.
Well, if it makes a profit.
Yeah, but that's the whole. That is the whole point about it. That if you, at the moment, profits are being taken out by shareholders. So they've been paid over the life of the company more than £4.6 billion. Now, if that £4.6 billion was invested in cleaner water, making the whole system more efficient, that would benefit both the consumer, but it would also benefit the government. I mean, I happen to think that all public services and utilities should be in public control, because why should people be making a profit out of it? But in this particular case, definitely.
Claire?
I think that Thames Water needs to just be allowed to go bust. I think it needs to be run by the administrators. I think that
how does that
any of the shareholders need to lose their money, because this has been mismanagement at a woeful level.
All right, forgive me. because this is where because we say things like this, and our guest earlier on was saying this. But what does that mean? If it goes bust, what happens to how it's managed? What happens to the customers? How does it work?
The customers will still receive water. So that isn't going to stop. The company of administrators will be appointed. They will take over the day-to-day running. So people won't see a difference in their supply. But it just means that the management are relieved of their duty. Not that they've been doing a massively great job of it. And all those shareholders who have taken out millions will not get their investment back.
Right.
So I think that what the administrators will do will keep it running, keep everybody's taps going,
and try and sell
it on.
Sell it on for £1 or whatever.
Absolutely, to a company that's going to run it. Because I, unlike Nigel, I don't think that nationalising it is the answer. I really don't. I'm not convinced. Yeah, surprisingly. I'm not convinced the government does a better job of running it. I think that private investment is needed. I don't think that Thames Water have covered themselves in any glory. They have managed this so badly.
So what confuses me a little bit with you two then is that you're saying let the shareholders lose their money.
Yeah.
You're saying, in effect, with the nationalisation plan, you're saying protect the shareholders.
No, it doesn't protect them. I mean, that it is entirely up to the government how much compensation they pay the shareholders. They would certainly have to pay them something. What I'm saying is strip them of control of the company and allow us to actually run the company and benefit from it.
But as you say, you'd still ultimately, you're saying taxpayers' money would compensate to a greater or lesser degree would compensate the shareholders.
But the difference would be rather than actually bailing them out, which is what they're asking for at the moment, the taxpayer would own the company, would be investing in the company, and would gain any profits the company made.
But it's almost as if you're rewarding those shareholders for the mismanagement of Thames Water. You would almost be saving them and saying, well, we don't want you, but here's your money back, off you go. Whereas I want to punish them for not doing a good job.
But your system sends it back into the private sector.
For somebody to manage it a hell of a lot better,
Or worse. I mean, that's the whole point, that
I'm not sure it could
if the public has a stake in the company, is it not better overall, both for the company and for the public, where you take the profit motive out of it?
But come on, nationalisation has not got a great track record.
It doesn't.
No, it hasn't. But that was a long time ago. I mean, it was Margaret Thatcher who privatised everything, and we are going back 30-odd years. So everyone sort of talks about how awful British Rail was. I'm not sure it was, but everything has changed so much in that time. So if you were nationalising things, you'd do it in a different way, a more modern way.
But it still doesn't. If you're bringing it into nationalised sort of government control, that means that the government will have to invest. Now, everybody in government and also in the Labour Party who are looking to become government are saying there's no money. So what will happen if the government takes it over? Where is the investment coming from to make this company work? Because if you're just looking at this is taxpayers' money, and you are suggesting that taxpayers are going to have to fork out more money for a failing water company.
But the whole point is that you've got to actually invest. They're talking about growth, economic growth at the moment. We invest in economic growth.
But why don't we let some private company invest in economic growth rather than the taxpayer?
Well, I mean, if you can find that private company, I mean, the stages would be the administration, and then when that didn't work, you'd nationalise it. As I say, I'd just cut out the middleman and do the nationalisation. But the idea that people own public services which they use is right in principle, and you take the profit motive out of it. So what money you put up, you're investing in that industry.
Well, let us know what you think, gbviews@gbnews.com.
I'd
love to be a fly on the wall at your dining room table, you two. This is what must be what it's like at home all the time.
I don't know about you, but what I'm left with that is not knowing. Because they both make very good arguments. If I had to vote on which side to go with on that plan for Thames Water, I wouldn't quite know.
No. And you're divided on the views as well, so do keep them coming in. Claire, let's have a look at the Mail, shall we? And this is the UN. It's been accused of double standards after it's urged the government to abandon the Rwanda asylum scheme.
Yeah, now this is quite interesting, and I think people are pointing at the UN and saying, well, this is hypocrisy writ large if you're suggesting the United Kingdom can't make a plan with Rwanda, but you're sending people there. But when you delve down into the detail of it, what the UN does, well, what it has done is sent people, the most vulnerable refugees from Libya, over to Rwanda, and this has been on an emergency basis. It is also temporary. They're not there for the rest of their days, and it is voluntary. So I think there's been sort of just under 2,000, I think 1,700 in total, I think 400 or so in the last year. So this is not quite at the same scale as what the UK wants to do. It is also not really comparable. This is emergency measures to get people out of danger, putting them there with the view of moving them somewhere else. So it's not the same at all. But I think it's going to put in people's minds that the UN shouldn't have a view on United Kingdom policy, which is a valid point. And I think it's worth having a look at how many people can have a say in what we do as a country, but it isn't quite as it's being sold.
Oh, right. Well, that's interesting coming from your perspective on that one. Nigel, I want to look at the front of the Mail. Angela Rayner, Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, under more pressure.
Yes, I think that this shows the sheer desperation of the Tories to start making waves on this one. I mean, they've now reported her to the police to see if the police will reconsider launching an investigation into her.
They have said they will reconsider
They've said that, yes, but it's based on a Tory complaint. I mean, the complaint's gone in from a Conservative MP, so the police have to now reconsider whether they'll investigate. Whether they will or not, they may say, look, this is not one for us. I can't understand why, if there is any problem around this, why HMRC aren't doing the investigation. They're the ones who would have lost money out of it, and it's unusual for the police to get involved in a thing like this.
But why is it then that Keir Starmer... See, I'm intrigued by Keir Starmer, who knows all this sort of stuff, right? And he said, well, I haven't looked at the details.
Yeah.
But why... Is that because then he can say, well, I haven't seen anything wrong? Is he trying to deliberately distance himself?
No, I think the point that Keir Starmer made yesterday was that his own team has had a look at this legal advice that Angela Rayner's received. Angela Rayner's team have gone through it. Both teams are satisfied that the advice is valid. On the basis of that, Keir Starmer is saying, look, I don't have to see all these personal details. I'm the leader. I'm happy to trust my teams to say everything's OK.
But is there a sense of... And I don't know, because I clearly haven't seen anything of it, and we don't know what Angela Rayner's done or hasn't done. But when people say, well, we've seen the advice and it looks like it's OK, it sounds like it's not perhaps as totally clear-cut as you'd want it to be. So at what point like with the expenses scandal, when people said, and in fact David Cameron insisted on it, saying, well, you haven't actually done anything wrong, you haven't actually broken the rules, but you need to give the money back anyway. So wouldn't that clear this up?
Well, I mean, if she hasn't broken any rules...
Yes, but if they're not...
You wouldn't expect to give her the money back.
Yes, but if they're saying it's the fact that it's a bit more nuanced than that, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's the case with everything is always the cover-up, and it's all this sort of denial, and my team has seen it, and Starmer's team has seen it, but we're not going to show anybody else, and we're not going to tell you what it is we've seen either. Well, I mean, that could be a piece of paper.
Personal details that go back 15 years. I mean, what Starmer and Angela Rayner have agreed to do is to publish their tax returns, which is absolutely right. What we're talking about here are personal details about tax affairs rather than tax returns, going back to the time when she was married. Or her own personal life would obviously come into that. I can understand why she's saying, well, hang on, I'm not prepared to just open up every personal detail about my life for everybody.
But in order to stop the scrutiny and the questioning in an election year, would that not be the best thing for her to do?
Yeah.
If she hasn't done anything wrong?
Well, I mean, she's arguing that if all the Tories open up their tax affairs, she's happy to show hers.
Yeah, but it's this odd situation of sort of saying there was a house that she was living in, but it wasn't the same house as her husband and child were living in, but they weren't separated. at that time.
Yeah, I mean...
that's a bit odd.
Well, it certainly is odd, and I would imagine that whatever the personal details are around that is the bit that Angela Rayner is not very keen on sharing, which I can understand, also for the privacy of the other people involved. The issue here really is whether or not she owes £3,000 in capital gains tax or not, which should be a job for HMRC.
No, it's easy just to pay it, won't she?
Well, I think it should have been paid. It would have shown the right attitude.
But she doesn't know it.
But you don't know that.
No, I don't know that.
Bye,
Nor do you.
two.
All right. Honestly, we're having a
Nigel.
domestic now.
We're out of
See you
time.
later.
Here's the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit, and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also. But many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven, and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock on Good Friday, the 29th of March. Today, Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove hits out at Thames Water after bosses ask to raise bills by 40% to avoid nationalisation.
Obscene cronyism. Sunak sparks an honours row after awarding one of the top Tory donors a gong.
Millions of people expected to travel today as the Easter getaway gets into full swing.
The West End celebrates the holy month of Ramadan during Easter weekend by putting up lights in the capital.
Ex-ministers warn state pension age could rise to 68 to pay for the triple lock. But is that fair?
Well, good morning. The sport is going to L. Ready? For Xabi Alonso, it's either Leverkusen or less likely Liverpool, Luke Littler, Lewis Ludlam and the late Larry Lloyd.
It's another day of heavy showers this Good Friday, but as we go through the Easter weekend, it should turn a little drier and just a little bit warmer. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Loads of you getting in touch already on Thames Water, which we're going to talk about in just a second. I'm intrigued by this, though. Nationalisation is what a lot of you are going for. I wonder if you change your mind after what we heard from Nigel and Claire earlier on, when Claire's saying, let them go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you are effectively having to pay money to the shareholders, taxpayers' money to the shareholders, to renationalise it. Nationalisation is the answer, says John. All those billions siphoned off to enrich top management and wealthy shareholders should have been used for the public good.
He goes on to say privatising a public monopoly such as water never made sense. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. And Kate says we should never have privatised the infrastructure, councils and public transport. The government needs to take back control on all aspects of our society. The whole country is being destroyed. Not only our standards of living, but our culture, morals and values too.
Yeah, another John says you need to let the company go bust and in the end the government can take over. Why should taxpayers keep propping up foreign companies and foreign investors?
Yeah, and that's the point our first guest said, actually, that we need to have patriotic investors, British investors. That part of the problem is the fact that so many of these are foreign investors and foreign-owned.
I think that's nonsense, though, to be fair, because it's all about making money and whether you are running an efficient service to make money. So it doesn't matter if they're British or not, as far as that goes. But it's whether, as Nigel says, should it just be owned by the state anyway? But we can't renationalise it without giving money to the shareholders, which people like Nigel are blaming for the current situation anyway.
Yeah, and
whereas
Rees-Mogg.
Claire blames them as well, but says, let it go bankrupt, then they lose their money. And then another investor will come in and buy it at a knockdown price and make it all work.
Well, do let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Well, Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary, has said Thames Water bosses are a disgrace. So this is, of course, in the wake of the fact that they say to get out of the big hole they're in, they want to increase customers' bills by 40%.
For years now, we've seen the customers of Thames Water taken advantage of by successive management teams that have been taking out profits and not investing as they should have been. So the answer is not to hit the consumers. The answer is for the management team to look to their own approach and ask themselves why they're in this difficult situation. And of course the answer is because of serial mismanagement for which they must carry the can.
Well, the firm's bosses have admitted it could face the risk of emergency nationalisation as its cash crisis deepens.
Well, shareholders have refused to give the company £500 million of extra financing that they want. They say that rescue plan is uninvestable.
Well, instead, shareholders want the regulator Ofwat to increase customers' bills by up to 40% over the next 5 years.
So what has gone so wrong? I mean, you wouldn't have thought it was that difficult to make a water company work, really. It's something that we all need. You just need to make sure it's clean. You need to make sure that the sewage is properly handled at the other end. Let's talk to Senior Lecturer for Natural Sciences at Bangor University, Dr Christian Dunn. Good to see you, as always. What is going wrong? I mean, we're seeing it with a number of water companies, but obviously catastrophically wrong with Thames Water.
Yeah, indeed. When it comes to Thames Water, I mean, I don't even know whether to cry or laugh about it. I mean, I think the word to describe that their management board is probably the same as what they're pumping out into our rivers. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. However, what I would say is that when it comes, you mentioned there, how difficult is it to run a water company? And my issue there would be that the situation that we're faced with now, when it comes to the pollution in our waters, the water companies are, I'm not defending water companies or the water industry, but the water industry, it's the tip of the iceberg of a huge societal problem. It's not just their fault. There are other factors contributing to the pollution of our waters, other industries, but also how we have run our country, how our building industry or our construction industry has worked. There's concrete everywhere, too much concrete where it doesn't need to be. We should have been looking at things called sustainable drainage systems, which in Europe, in France, they do all the time. We haven't really done that in this country. And actually using our landscape as well for our agriculture and other purposes, it's not been done in a way that can help water management and water pollution as well. One example of that would be wetlands. So those marshes and fens and bogs and swamps in our country, we've lost something like 75% over them the past 200 years. They've just been destroyed. But those wetland habitats, look, you're seeing one now right on the screen now, a riparian strip, that little sort of soggy bit. Well, actually, there's no riparian wetland there, actually. That's the problem. There's no soggy bit between the water and the land. You've just got those hard banks there. That's a serious problem when it comes to water pollution, because that soggy bit on the banks of those rivers, that helps remove pollution. The kind of the microbes and the soil and the plants, they work together to remove so many different pollutants, from nitrates and phosphates to pharmaceutical waste and illicit drug waste as well. But because we've done exactly what that picture shows, we've canalised it. We've just kind of put concrete borders or banks all the way down many of our rivers. We've lost that special area on those rivers, which is just contributing to this problem.
And it kind of leads into a point that was made this morning, that at some point, Thames Water, other water companies would need to raise a lot of money to finance a huge programme of reinvestment and modernisation of our water systems.
Yeah, indeed. And they've not done that. And I think that's when, so I'm not defending water companies, and now I will slate water companies massively, because this is when they've not invested correctly. And they've just operated as a business, but not even a business, as a bad business. That's the problem. They've operated as a bad business, so they've not provided a service, and that no one really minds. If you're providing a good service, by all means, make some money from it, by all means. But if you're not providing a good service, how dare you take money from us?
What about people like you? I don't know if you do it personally, but there must be people with your level of expertise, Christian, who are advising water companies, or if not, there should be.
Yeah, so this is, again, why I don't just like slating water companies, because the people I deal with, water companies, yes, the people that I deal with all are passionately wanting to make a difference here. They want to reduce pollution. They want to improve natural habitats. They want to do that. I think when you get to the very top, the management, I mean, that's well above my pay grade. And I think that's when things start to go a little bit pear-shaped.
Christian, what are your thoughts on nationalisation? Do you think that is the answer? Because I think a lot of people are asking this morning, should our water companies ever have been privatised in the first place?
I mean, I think there's two separate questions there. Should it have been privatised in previously? But whether we should renationalise, I mean, it's not been mentioned here in these discussions that you've been having, but one of the issues that you have if that happened, a lot of our pensions are also tied up with these companies. So if you renationalise, what happens there? I think the water industry, and by that I mean the companies and the regulators, the water industry in the UK is currently not fit for purpose. It's not what society wants, and it's most certainly not what the environment needs. We need to rethink it. We massively need to rethink it, whether that's privatisation or continuing privatisation, but with far stricter guidelines. An example of that would be fines. Currently, if you pollute, you get fined. But that's now just become part of the business as normal for companies. We've got to start looking at being tougher. Health and safety breaches in the UK, if a CEO or a management or a boss is found guilty of a health and safety breach, they can face a custodial sentence. We've got to start looking at that for environmental issues when it comes to water companies. It's got to get that tough.
So why is it that we appear, at least, to have seen things get dramatically worse over the last couple of years. I mean, particularly because there's been a lot of talk about it on the news. You know, the sewage issue, the wastewater issue. Why does that suddenly seem to have got worse?
I think for various reasons. The one reason, I'm not defending water companies again, but one reason is there is more monitoring now of our waters. There is more monitoring. But I do think as well, there's just been much more of public awareness. You know, organisations like Surfers Against Sewage and Fergal Sharkey have been doing kind of lots of campaigning. I think there has been a growth in that campaign, and I think that's linked to an interest across the country in more environmental purposes and wanting to be more, look after nature more. I think it's part of that kind of that trend. And then I think as well, this has angered people because people can physically see. You walk down a river and you can see it. I mean, you can actually see it. And so I think it has actually angered people in a very similar way to the plastic pollution crisis about in a couple of years ago. When people were seeing all that, we're seeing it, we wanted to do something about it. I think that's the case here. And I do find it fascinating that sewage is now potentially going to be one of the contributing factors to change our government. I find that absolutely fascinating that people are so angry about this that it's going to be a contributing factor to who they vote for. And that's why politicians are taking it so seriously, I think, and that's why it is being taken so seriously. Is because politicians are going, oh, I could lose my seat because my local river is polluted. I've got to be being seen to be doing something about it.
Just very briefly, because we're out of time, we see normally, environmental issues and business being on opposite sides of the coin, if you like. How do we make them integrate better?
This is a real good example of how we have to work together, environmentalists and environmental scientists and business. And that's one of the ways that we can do that is using nature-based solutions. So that's when I'm talking about my wetlands, but getting companies to fund, to build those systems, those wetland systems and other systems as well. Because then that is a company paying for a natural system, which is going to have stacked benefits. It's going to reduce water pollution, it's going to manage water levels, and it's going to increase biodiversity and increase our well-being as well. So we've got to start looking at getting companies more involved with that. And in my experience, they are massively understanding that and wanting to invest in it as well.
Dr. Christian Dunn, really good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts on that issue. Do let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com.
He knows his stuff.
He
I really
does.
like talking to him, actually.
He should be on the board.
Honestly, I think it'd be better, wouldn't it? Thames Water have responded to all of this. They said they'd like to reassure customers that despite this announcement, it's business as usual for Thames Water. Our 8,000 staff remain committed to working with our partners in the supply chain to provide our services for the benefit of our customers, communities and the environment.
Now, Rishi Sunak has sparked an Easter honours row as he announced a knighthood for one of the Conservatives' biggest donors.
Yeah, the PM gave the honour to Mohammed Mansour, who donated £5 million to the party last year.
Well, the list also included 4 Tory MPs who've been loyal to Rishi Sunak, including Philip Davies of this parish.
Yeah, let's talk to former Labour advisor Kevin Maher, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. Is this a cash for honours scandal or not?
Well, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I'd say it probably is. It's always very interesting, the timing of these things. It tells you everything, really. If you're looking down the Whitehall rubbish chute at Christmas and at Easter, you usually find some fairly unsavoury things that have been kicked out, hoping that either nobody notices at all, or that the story runs into the kind of dead zone during the holiday breaks. So I suspect the government knew this was going to be a problem. It's embarrassed by it, which is why it's made this announcement at this point. But yes, it's a classic of the ilk. It's a classic. Here's a big donor to a political party who then gets a big top honour. Now, people may say, well, that's fine. That's just how politics works. Or people might say, actually, you know what? The whole honours system really needs to be about selflessness, and actually party donors should never get anything. And I would make that as a general rule, frankly. And also people just doing their day job. I think that also is not something that the system should really reflect. It should be about acts of real selflessness, community service to the country, service to an industry perhaps over a long period of time, something where somebody's got track record and credibility, rather than somebody that's swept in, chucked a pile of cash to a political party and then gets put in the House of Lords, which is bizarre.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of people would agree with that point, Kevin. Look, the timing of this is interesting for another reason as well, isn't it? Because it's outside of the New Year's honours list and the King's birthday honours list. Now, is that going to fuel speculation that there could be a summer election?
It definitely will. I know there's got to be a general...
Oh, he's gone.
I've lost Kevin, but we got the gist. It definitely will.
It definitely will. But there's a dissolution honours list as well.
Is there?
Yeah, when Parliament is when we've got the dissolution, so in the wake of the general election, then there's an honours list there. So
timing is funny then, isn't it?
But it is a little bit funny. Cash for honours. I mean, it doesn't smell right, does it? But it's always happened. That's the thing. With all parties. Anyway.
Let us know what you think.
Oh, God,
we spend too much time together, I think.
Yes, we do.
2 peas in a pod.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has had to drop his student ideas when he became leader to prove he can be Prime Minister.
Well, that's what his close ally, Jenny Chapman, had to say to our political editor, Christopher Hope, on his latest podcast. Here's the snippet.
The flip-flopping, though, that Keir Starmer's criticised for, which you can do in opposition, is that a strength, do you think?
I mean, I see it as starting out with a prospectus when you are a brand new, straight into a leader of the opposition, and then you've seen Keir evolve from that, taking over the burning skip of a party off Jeremy Corbyn to now being a credible candidate for Prime Minister.
He jumped his ideas. He got the power, didn't he, when you were supporting him as the leadership candidate? You know, the tuition fees, abolishing universal credit, defending EU freedom and movement, and he's dropped those.
Because he wants to be Prime Minister. You know, this is a guy that's serious about his politics. He's not there, as we've just discussed, to lead a protest movement. His job is to say to the British public, trust in me, I will look after your future, your pensions, your mortgages, your kids' futures. These are serious, big things that we want to be trusted with. You cannot have someone who just goes around saying things, that maybe they've believed when they were a student, or maybe, things that are popular within the Labour Party. You've got to have a credible offer for the whole country, and that's a journey that Keir. I'd say there has been a journey. I'm completely upfront about that. Yeah. But I'm really pleased to have seen
it's working in the polls.
Yes.
I mean, I've been struck by how, on security, he's been in lockstep with the government. And I think that was really important because the nadir for many people during Jeremy Corbyn's time as leader was over Salisbury when he questioned whether it was Russia behind the poisoning. Yes. And anyone involved in Whitehall and security in this country would say that was a moment at which everyone took a breath and thought, can this guy be Prime Minister? And it seems that even on, and it's been hard on Israel and Gaza, he has stayed with the government and hasn't really gone ahead of where they are on the big foreign policy matters.
Yes.
I think that's been noticed by a lot of people.
And I think that's been important because you need to show that you can be responsible and you are not going to play politics with something like Ukraine. You are not going to play games with this. There is a national interest which is higher and above and much more important than your party political interest. And that is one of the reasons that Keir Starmer has gained the respect of the British public for that. And I think it's what he believes as well. His background as a chief prosecutor, he understands how criminal gangs work, what terrorism is really all about and how you prevent it. And I think that international perspective that he has on those issues that are about keeping people safe means that, he isn't someone who thinks, right, what's in it for me? Where's the red line between me and the Tories on this issue? Yeah. It's what is the right thing to do.
And that's out now.
Yes, wherever you get your podcasts and on the GB News website as well.
Yeah, interesting listen, actually. It's nice to have those in-depth conversations with people that you can't just do on a normal news programme.
It's the joy of a podcast.
Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts?
No.
I'm obsessed, can't get enough.
Really?
Yes.
I said I do listen to... Well, there is one I watch called Help I Sexted My Boss, which is a comedy. Well, it's not a comedy. Well, it's a sort of comedy. It's an amusing one. It's William Hanson and Jordan North.
Would you recommend?
It's brilliant.
There you go. I might give that a go.
Perhaps if you're a slightly older generation, might not be quite for you. It's a little bit cheeky, let's put it that way. But I watch it on YouTube rather than as a podcast.
Oh, that's very modern. I know. He's so technical.
I know. Right, should we crack on?
Let's. Now, the Tavistock Gender Identity Development Service is closing for good this weekend, 2 years after a damning report which highlighted major concerns.
Well, our reporter Ray Addison has looked back at the history of the NHS service.
The Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic will finally close its doors on Sunday. It follows severe criticism that it gave some of the most vulnerable members of society treatments that lacked sufficient safety or clinical effectiveness. It was the brainchild of psychiatrist Dr. Domenico Dicelli, inspired by a single case of a teenager who claimed she was a boy in a female body.
He told me, when I was a child, I had all these differences, and my parents should have seen it. Why didn't they do anything about it? But that implanted me the idea of creating a service for children and adolescents.
From its launch in 1989, with just a handful of referrals, it grew into the largest children's gender clinic in the world, referring around 2,000 for puberty blockers, but failing to follow up to see how they were doing. It also ignored the concerns of staff, some of whom became whistleblowers. Formal concerns were first raised in 2005 by therapist Sue Evans.
My concerns back then was actually around a 16-year-old child that I had seen referred after 4 sessions for a hormone therapy treatment. It is strange that such a powerful medication could be given on such a small level of assessment.
Yes. 2/3 of the clinic's patients were female, and they often had an underlying mental health condition. But the clinic stopped providing therapy and focused on a medical pathway. There was also concern that patient support groups, such as transgender charity Mermaids, had undue influence, which they've denied. In 2018, a devastating report by Dr. David Bell concluded that the service was not fit for purpose. The following year, a legal challenge brought by former patient Kira Bell questioned if children could properly consent to treatment. That ultimately failed, but it caught the attention of the media.
My hope was that outside of the noise of the culture wars, the report would shine a light on this harmful experiment on vulnerable children and young people. These drugs seriously harm me in more ways than one, and they have harmed many more, particularly young girls and women.
In September 2020, NHS England announced an independent review by Dr. Hilary Cass. She found that options other than gender transitioning were not being explored, and staff felt under pressure not to question parents' and children's assumptions. Finally, in July 2022, NHS England announced it would be closing the clinic and opening new regional services offering psychosocial and psychological support, but not medical. For some, the closure will come too late, their bodies forever changed by an NHS service which failed to protect them. Ray Addison, GB News.
Now, at 23 minutes past 7, let's take a look at the weather for you now with Alex Deacon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also, but many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hey, it doesn't feel like it, but spring is on the way, and today is the final day to enter our massive spring giveaway. So you can prepare yourself for the sunshine with gadgets, a shopping spree, and £12,345 in cash. Lines close at 5 p.m. today, so don't miss out. Here's how you enter.
It's the final day to see how you could win big.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. I sent a text through my mobile phone. It was just amazing. As soon as it goes into your bank account, it's fantastic.
There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Along with £500 in shopping vouchers, you'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. today. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. today. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. Now, should the West End display Ramadan lights over Easter? That's our debate next.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 7:29. Now, some people have expressed concern because Ramadan lights went on display across central London, but this weekend, which of course is Easter weekend.
Yes, they were switched on earlier this month by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, whose spokesperson said the mayor is standing up for Londoners of all faiths.
Well, in response, Westminster Council has said it supports festivals from different faith communities throughout the year.
So, we're asking this morning, should there be Ramadan lights on over Easter? Well, joining us now is broadcaster and relationship coach Fahima Mohammed and broadcaster and commentator Khadija Khan. Very good to see you both this morning. Fahima, let's start with you, shall we? You think this is a good thing?
It's not a good thing or a bad thing. I just think it just shows inclusivity as well as integration. And it just so happens that Ramadan follows and coincides with Easter this year because it follows the lunar calendar. We're not deliberately trying to overtake anything. And it has been approved by the council through regulations. And at the end of the day, I don't see anyone really trying to offend anybody. If there were going to be Easter sort of celebratory lights or anything, parades, then no one's stopping it. And this was not done illegally or anything like that, or to overtake anything. It just so happens to coincide with Easter, and I don't understand what the uproar is all about.
Khadija?
First and foremost, we have a very British way to celebrate and appreciate religion and religious festivals. And it happens and people are very much comfortable and they don't have any, reservations about that. So there is no need to override that. What we are talking about here is an excessive and overzealous display of a particular religion. We see people taking over streets, like offering prayer, and then we see some Muslim politicians pushing their religious belief into politics. And then we see these Ramadan lights. It was done fast. I don't think so there was any need to just do it again because that is a kind of overriding the very subtle British way to celebrate religious belief in social discourse. So I think it's very dangerous when you are prioritizing or pushing one particular religion or religious belief into the public domain because that generates resentment among other beliefs.
It doesn't generate resentment. I'm sorry, but you are talking. You are not
not only
speaking correctly.
Generates resentment, but also there is.
It's just because of the hate and bigotry.
There is a problem.
Let Fahima come back on.
Do you know what? The UK operates under a capitalistic economic system, right? And at the end of the day, it promotes businesses. This was actually funded by the Aziz Foundation, who is a rich businessman. There was no opposition to it. And only 30% of the UK actually even claims to be Christians. At the end of the day, the problem is, why are they not coming forward, putting their money forward, putting that forward, and putting their faith forward?
I would like to mention
That's how it is.
Example.
No one is putting their religion across to anybody.
Removed from
Nobody is.
It's because...
All right, let Khadija...
But that's a totally separate... That's a totally separate
that
issue.
hadith was not signed off by the authorities. It was not appropriate for anybody to put that hadith on the departure board, which was reserved for the passenger information. So that was removed. It was a crystal clear message from the British public that they don't want to see any particular religion dictating their
No one's
day-to-day
dictating.
life
When we
and
have,
telling them
when we
that they are
have Chinese
sinners
New Year,
while they are getting on the train.
when we have Diwali, all of these things are all there. Hanukkah, Chinese celebrations, all of that is all part of multiculturalism and diversity and inclusivity and integration, and there's never a problem. Only when it comes to Muslims, then there seems to be an outrage by certain individuals who have that.
But I guess part of the argument falls back to this excessive and overzealous thing that Khadija mentioned, because with
it's been approved. It's not over and excessive.
But with Easter, with some of the Jewish celebrations, what you don't see is anything as bright and vibrant and as public.
So then, whose fault is that?
Well, no, that's a valid
whose
thing to say.
fault is that? You know, the system provides equality for you to go and put yourself forward. Muslims contribute £31 billion to the UK economy, and it is about that to a certain extent because, like I said, we operate on a capitalistic.
That is very much part of British fabric, and we need to appreciate it.
Well, we are also part of the British fabric.
From all faith and no faith together.
Well,
and
there is representation of all faith, but there just seems to be a problem from certain individuals who are with one particular group.
Ladies, it's no good talking over each other because people at home won't be able to necessarily hear. What is the problem, Khadija, with a religion being celebrated? And you are right that, you know, in the UK we do tend to be a bit more subdued in how we mark these festivals, apart from Christmas, really. And Easter, obviously, is quite commercialised now. But that is our own fault, isn't it? And why should we stop other people from celebrating in a way which is a bit more vibrant if that's what they want to do?
No, it's not. The thing is that we celebrate all religious belief here in the UK, and that is a very appropriate way to do that. But in recent days, we should not be forgetting that one particular religion has been pushed into public domain. Let me give you some examples. Hanukkah celebrations were cancelled because that may offend Muslims. Then we see some people taking over the streets and offering prayer that is not mentioned in their religious belief, and that is not required. And then we see Muslim politicians like Sadiq Khan and Hamza Yousaf, they are putting their photos on the social media while call for the prayer at the resident of First Minister of Scotland. I mean, why we are trying to bring one particular religion?
No, that's not about religion. It just so happens that they represent a particular faith, and you have an issue with that.
Other politicians doing
well, maybe they should come up and actually do that. Then there's nothing wrong with that.
There is no moral superiority when it comes to Muslims. We all have moral values, whether we believe in a religion or not. So let's put this one thing straight: that there are people in British society who are religious and non-religious, and Muslims, they claim no moral superiority over other religion or non-religious people. So when Muslim politicians, they bring these kind of things, you know, a lot of emphasis on belief, which is not...
No, they don't just emphasise only on their own beliefs. I'm sorry, that's completely wrong. But they don't just emphasise only on their beliefs. You've seen Sadiq Khan there for Holi, you've seen him for the Diwali celebrations, you've seen him for all types of celebrations, but you're just picking and choosing on one particular because it's against the Muslims. So that's just really against one particular, because you yourself do not like the Islamic faith. Why don't we just say it out there how it is?
Being pushed into political and social discourse. No. I am all for celebrating. I celebrate Christmas, I celebrate Holi, I celebrate Hanukkah, I celebrate Eid. So I am all for celebrating all religious festivals because I believe that these religious festivals bring people together.
Okay.
And in a cohesive society such as Britain, we need that, right?
But
we don't have to override
that's what's happening.
We are out of time.
That's what's happening.
Both of you, Fahima,
we are out of
Khadija,
time.
thank you very much, both of you.
Let us know what you think. You'll have an opinion at home. gbviews@gbnews.com. Ladies, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we've got Paul Coit coming up. He's got all your sports news in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Greg Edwards. On the trains, GWR services are suspended between Newbury and Westbury because of flooding, and Greater Anglia services aren't running between Bishop Stortford and both Cambridge and Stansted Airport because of overhead wire problems. In Cornwall, the St Maur's passenger ferry isn't operating because of poor weather conditions. Lots of engineering work affecting the trains today, so best to check before you travel. On the roads in Suffolk, the A14 is blocked between junction 53 at White House Interchange and 54 at Sproughton because of a police incident. The A1M in Hertfordshire is closed northbound until the early hours of tomorrow morning between junctions 6 and 7. That's well into Stevenage South for roadworks. In Somerset at Radstock, the A367 is closed after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for the sports news now with Paul Coit, who's here with us.
Good morning. Good morning. I've got so many bits and pieces for you. Where would you like to start?
I think we'll start with Sandro Tonali.
Sandro Tonali, Newcastle. Well, I say Newcastle player. He is officially, but he's not actually playing for Newcastle at the moment because he was banned in October for 10 months, found guilty of gambling on matches when he was playing for AC Milan. It was an Italian ban that then became a worldwide ban, which meant that he couldn't play for Newcastle, Ellie. And now he's been banned there until, well, so it's 10 months, so we're looking for quite some time. But now the latest part of this. Now, this is when things, whether we say sinister or whether we look at it and think, you know, it looks like there's a problem, is that he's been found gambling again. And these are the charges now from the Football Association. So this is from over here, not from Italy. Charged with 50 betting offences between August and October last year. And so it's now a question of whether the charges will then go to another ban off the back of that.
Oh dear. Has the mic gone?
Your mic's gone, Paul.
Has it really?
So you
talk into mine. Don't worry about that. It's gone all funny. So what else have we got?
So anyway, this is such a more enjoyable. Would you like to join us, Ellie? This is much more enjoyable way of doing the sport.
This is how we should do all the sport.
I think so as well. Should we talk about?
Like we're shouting now.
What would you like to do?
Luke Littler.
Let's talk about Luke Littler. Luke Littler did marvellously.
Yeah.
Did marvellously yesterday, Premier League of Darts. So he beat Michael van Gerwen. He beat Luke Humphries, who he lost to in the World Final. Oh, my mic's all right now. You can move away.
All right.
Yeah, everything's fine now.
I'll bob off.
So who he lost to in the World Championship final.
When I'm not wanted.
But you know what? How difficult it is to score 180.
It's very difficult.
I was playing darts with my son Joe.
He didn't.
Last night. Look how close this came. I think we've got to... Look, that's not me.
Your son
That's
Joe
Luke.
looks like Luke Littler, doesn't he?
I was playing darts, so I threw... This is me yesterday.
No.
Look at that closely. Now, you can see they're mine because you can see they're Spurs dart flights.
Of course they are.
The first one was the 60. The second one, treble 20. Now, by the third dart, I was getting a little bit shaky. Is
it in the green?
In the green. Treble 5.
Oh.
So just missed out. So all I can say is that there's hope for everybody.
I just think you walked up and shoved them in.
No. Now, would you really think that I would do so? If I was going to do that, I would stick them all in there and I'd say, look at my 9-dart finish.
Yeah.
So that's how close it was. But Luke Littler, though, still continuing to do very, very well.
We've got 30 seconds. Can we talk about chocolate?
Let's talk about chocolate.
Because it is Easter.
It is Easter, and also the Olympics are in Paris. So chocolatiers around Paris are making sport-themed Easter eggs.
Yes.
So let's have a look at these.
They look so yummy.
That looks very nice. There's the chocolatier that we would be talking about. He's one of the finest in Paris.
What's that got to do with sport?
That just looks like a regular Easter egg to me. It's La Maison...
Stephen, don't question it too much.
There you go. That's the big one. Now, that's La Maison du Chocolat in Paris. It's 7.6 kilos. How much would you pay for that? Look at it. How much do you reckon?
At least a tenner.
How about...
£1,000.
Well, keep going.
What?
€2,500 for that. They do cheaper ones, but there we are. It's like a sack race with the date there and the Easter egg in the middle. £2,500. There he is. Look,
it is big, to be fair.
And it's 24 kilograms.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. It must be solid. Right, we're out of time, Paul.
OK.
We've got to go, because otherwise we're not going to squeeze any papers.
Well, we'll have to try again.
We will.
We'll have another go.
We'll have another go. We'll take you through the papers in a couple of minutes.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Has the NHS killed your relative and then lied to you about it? There is an alleged cover-up culture in the NHS. They lie to you about why your loved one died, about poor care, then bury documents with evidence in them, and they try to silence staff who speak out. This is according to the NHS Ombudsman. There are around 11,000 avoidable deaths every year. 11,000. Someone's mum dies, their children know something dodgy happened, and then they're met with a rotten culture, including the altering of care plans, the disappearance of crucial documents, and complete denials. They lie to you, but they really get away with it because the NHS is like a religion, and people dare not criticise it. You'd be accused of NHSophobia. The annual budget is around £180 billion, and we now have about 2 million people working for the NHS. They cannot keep blaming everything on being underfunded and understaffed. If they're covering up medical negligence, it means the problem doesn't get dealt with and it keeps happening. And that is the fault of the NHS managers, the people who run it. They've got the money for 837 non-clinical staff working at English hospitals on the highest paid Band 9 contracts, which is between £99,000 and £115,000 a year. How many nurses would that pay for? How many junior doctors? And they've got the time on their hands to think about making the NHS the world's first carbon-neutral health service. They've got time to consider whether women in labour should be picked up by an electric ambulance that might have to be recharged en route to the hospital. There are NHS managers with a budget of £180 billion, 2 million members of staff, and they're crying about being understaffed and under-resourced. If they spent more time looking after patients instead of finding ways to cover up avoidable deaths, then maybe we'd have a better health service.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:48, let's go through the papers this morning, should we, with the husband and wife extraordinaire couple, our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, and former government advisor, Ms Claire Pearsall. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, Nigel, let's kick off with the front of the mirror, should we?
Yes, I mean, this is a good one because it's about actually keeping people safe. It's a new law, and it's called Martin's Law, named after one of the victims of the Manchester Arena bomb, which killed 22 back in 2017. And his mother's been campaigning for the last 5 years to get this law brought in. She suddenly sort of revamped it because of what happened in Moscow, which was so horrific last week. And the kind of thing she wants, which is actually makes sense, counter-terror training for venue staff, risk analysis by bosses, something that MI5 could help with, metal detectors when people go in and out. And certainly, I mean, things like the training for venue staff, things really useful. I've just done some counter-terror training, and you'd learn little things like if you find a suspicious package, don't phone the police on your mobile within 15 metres of it.
Yeah.
It almost seems obvious, but I didn't know that. But things like that could actually be useful. Government are consulting on this. Consultation is just ending, so it looks like this will come in.
It's a win-win, this one, actually.
Yeah. It is. I mean, you can take any politics out of it. I think this is sensible. This is the safety of individuals. And it's quite interesting when you say about counter-terrorism training for venue staff. Parish councils have also been through this with hiring out of things like village halls. And I think that I probably took the view that that was not very necessary for a village hall. But it is, of course it is. It's very sensible. Things like that, a suspicious package, it could be in any small area, large area, and I think that's brilliant. I think if staff are trained in this, then we're all going to benefit for the safety.
Yeah, you can't lose on that one.
Claire, the message is go easy on German beer.
Ah, yes. You see, don't we love a bit of nanny state?
Oh, yes.
So this is the government warning anybody, football fans travelling over to the Euros this year, that German beer is a little bit stronger than what you would find at home, so go easy. And you know, when you sort of think, I'm sure that football fans or anybody
are
really
determined not to go easy.
Absolutely. If you're out and you're on tour, then you're going to have a couple of drinks. And I think that everybody knows that German beer perhaps is a little bit stronger than the stuff you have at home. That's the joy of having it.
The only thing is, when you look at the details of it, there are some German beers, apparently, that are 16%.
Well, that's like drinking a pint of wine or something.
Well, stronger than wine.
Stronger than wine, yeah.
Quite sherry.
So,
so on that front, don't go for the 16% stuff.
Well, exactly. I mean,
that would floor you.
It absolutely would. But I think that people should just be allowed to have what they like, and the government getting involved, like just with the NHS telling you not to eat an entire Easter egg in one go. Stop it.
An entire Easter egg. I mean, I don't know if I could manage both mouthfuls at once.
They're only tiny.
They're so small now, aren't
It's
they?
awful.
They are.
Nigel, this makes me laugh in the Express. Doctor Who may outlive the BBC. Well, considering he's many hundreds of thousands of years old already.
He's already done it.
According to the canon.
Yeah, he's already achieved that. Well, this is Russell T Davies, who brought Doctor Who back to TV 20 years ago with the revival.
It will be, yeah.
And now he says the Time Lord, it looks like the BBC will disappear before the Time Lord does. The problem really is money at the BBC. So what he's saying is that he's going to have to go elsewhere with Doctor Who to make decent programmes.
Does he really think that? Because, of course, and it's controversial in and of itself, but the Doctor Who franchise is now paired up with Disney.
Yes, that's right.
So Disney must be funding part of it.
And they are. And so at the moment, if Disney pulled out, he says, well, we'd have to make smaller sort of programmes with the BBC, that he wouldn't actually stop it. But he thinks that now you're going to end up seeing Doctor Who on streaming services. And this seems to be the problem that BBC is facing at the moment, that they used to be brilliant at doing great dramas, and now you can see how they're cutting corners and how things are getting cheap. I mean, one fabulous drama that came out a little while ago was SAS Rogue Heroes, which was beautifully acted. Everything about it was great, apart from the special effects. So when planes blew up, you could see the little balsa wood models, and it let the whole thing down. And that was because they couldn't spend that extra bit of money, which you can see now in all the streaming services. They spend millions on making those things right.
But that's a model. The streaming service model is one that works. It means they can plough huge amounts into these really high-quality dramas now.
And I think that's the way that the BBC is going to have to look at it, and it's something called co-production. So it was entered into to have Disney bring in some money so they could do the special effects properly. Otherwise, you go back to slightly wobbly sets.
There is nothing wrong with those wobbly sets.
and a sort of wooden TARDIS and things like that. So I think that's the future for the BBC. But the one
Should the licence fee go?
I mean, it's difficult. You need to think what it's going to be used for. And I think the BBC have made some massive errors in cutting things like local radio. I'm a big fan of local radio, and I think they needed to have kept to their original model of this is what your taxpayer wants, this is what you should fund.
And the BBC shouldn't do stuff that elsewhere does, basically.
All right, lovely.
Thank you very much, both of you. Let's look at the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also. But many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Greg Edwards. On the trains, GWR services are suspended between Newbury and Westbury because of flooding. There are no Stansted Express services between Liverpool Street and Stansted Airport because of overhead wire problems. No Greater Anglia services between Bishop Stortford and Cambridge and Bishop Stortford and Stansted Airport for the same reason. Lots of engineering work affecting the trains today, so best to check before you travel. On the roads in Suffolk, the A14 is closed in both directions between junction 53 at White House interchange and 55 at Copdock interchange because of a police incident. In Hertfordshire, the A1M is closed northbound for roadworks through until the early hours of tomorrow morning between junction 6 at Welling and 7 at Stevenage South. In Enfield, the A1055 is blocked northbound after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Want to be a winner just like Phil?
Obviously, whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
Enter our massive spring giveaway. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock on Good Friday, the 29th of March. Today, Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove hits out at Thames Water after bosses ask to raise bills by 40% to avoid nationalisation.
Yes, shareholders were quite happy to take the profits, but now the company is in trouble. They don't want to know. It's likely that either customers will end up footing the bill or taxpayers if the company has to be nationalised. In other words, all of us. I'll bring you more shortly.
Obscene cronyism. Sunak sparks an honours row after awarding one of the top Tory donors a gong.
Millions of people expected to travel today as the big Easter getaway gets into full swing.
Meanwhile, the West End celebrates the holy month of Ramadan during Easter weekend by displaying lights in the capital.
Ex-ministers warn state pension age could rise to 68 sooner than expected to pay for the triple lock. But is that really fair?
And in sport this morning, the Newcastle player banned for gambling has been caught again and could face yet another ban. The favourite to be the next Liverpool manager is now much less likely. And the latest on dart sensation, Luke Littler.
It's another day of heavy showers this Good Friday, but as we go through the Easter weekend, it should turn a little drier and just a little bit warmer. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Those of you getting in touch over those Ramadan celebrations, June says, we have a huge banner over the council house in Nottingham. That's a big one in Old Market Square. Nothing about Easter, though. Now, that, I would say, isn't right. That isn't right. You shouldn't celebrate one and not the other. But what I do struggle with a little bit is a lot of you saying, I thought we were a Christian country, which we traditionally were. But now, how many people who are saying that are actually observing any sort of Christian remembrance or going to any Good Friday services or Easter Sunday services, or are you just buying Easter eggs and having lamb on Sunday and not actually doing anything related to the death and resurrection? So that would be my... I think you've got to be a little bit careful. I don't have any issues with people celebrating Ramadan. Why should you? Multi-faith is a positive thing in many ways. Intolerance is a positive thing. I just don't see why Easter is being ignored, which is what worries me slightly.
I'm just trying to work out how many, in this last census, how many people in this country are actually Christian and identify as Christian.
I think it was 30%.
I think it's less than that.
Might be.
It is low. I'll get back to you on that one. I'm just looking at that.
Aid says, I seem to have missed TfL's famous boards outside tube stations declaring their love for Christian Easter. Well, I sort of think you should mark it. I mean, I suppose you could argue all the shops are full of eggs and chicks and all that sort of thing, which we sort of associate with Easter. So the high streets are full of it, in that sense. So is that just the same as putting a few lights up in the West End?
Yeah. Robert says if Ramadan falls at the same time as Easter, then it's Easter that should take precedence.
Can't they coexist a little bit? Anyway.
Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com. On that story, or indeed any of the stories that we're talking about today, because we're talking about a lot, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Including this one, we should also have a view on.
Thames Water. Dear me. Michael Gove has said Thames Water bosses are a disgrace after the firm asked to increase customers' bills by 40%. And that's to plug a major funding gap.
For years now, we've seen the customers of Thames Water taken advantage of by successive management teams that have been taking out profits and not investing as they should have been. So the answer is not to hit the consumers. The answer is for the management team to look to their own approach and ask themselves why they're in this difficult situation. And of course the answer is because of serial mismanagement for which they must carry the can.
Well, the firm's bosses have admitted it could face the risk of emergency nationalisation as its cash crisis deepens.
Yet shareholders have refused to give the company £500 million of extra financing. They say that rescue plan is uninvestable.
Instead, shareholders want the regulator Ofwat to increase customers' bills by up to 40% over the next 5 years.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. It's a tough one, Catherine, because it looks like the government is left either bailing out the company and shareholders by nationalising it or part nationalising it, or just let it run to the dogs.
Yes, and it very much looks like whatever happens, either the 15 million customers of Thames Water are going to have to pay 40% more by the end of the decade for a service that, frankly, is not very good. Thames Water top the league of the number of times that sewage was put out into rivers last year. So big bills for those people, millions of customers. Or ultimately, if it has to be nationalised, then we will all pay. The taxpayer, yet again, will have to come along and foot the bill. And it's a bit reminiscent, isn't it, of the financial crisis, because what we had then was the banks behaved badly, the water companies, as we know, not behaving well more recently. And they took risks, they took the profits, they were happy to take the profits. But when things went wrong, lo and behold, it becomes the government's problem because, of course, these companies can't just cease trading. Millions of people depend on them to get their water. So it's a standoff now. The company has gone to Ofwat, the regulator. They have got till the end of May to make a decision whether to allow bills to be increased. Thames Water are solvent currently until next year. The Chancellor says he's keeping a very close eye on it, but it's pretty awful news whichever way you look at it. And I think part of the problem is, when these companies were nationalised back in the 1980s, first of all, it made the Conservative government a lot of money at the time, but also the theory was that, private companies are driven by profit, so they will be efficient. But what has happened is they've taken a lot of money in profits while failing to invest in the infrastructure that's needed. That's why we've got so much problems with sewage. And Chris Weston, the chief executive, has been saying that this is the price that customers have to pay for the investment in our infrastructure that's needed. But, Jacob Rees-Mogg, former cabinet minister, saying, let the company go bankrupt. The shareholders will lose their money. But he says they took too much cash out, so they deserve no sympathy. No sympathy for the water company, but it looks like one way or another, either the taxpayers or Thames Water customers are going to foot the bill.
Well, Catherine, do stay with us. We're just going to share this response from Thames Water, who have said, I'd like to reassure our customers that despite this announcement, it is business as usual for Thames Water. Our 8,000 staff remain committed to working with our partners in the supply chain to provide our services for the benefit of our customers, communities and the environment. And Catherine, whilst we've got you, did want to talk to you about Rishi Sunak, who has sparked somewhat of an Easter honours row, hasn't he? Announcing a knighthood for one of the Tory party's biggest donors and 4 Tory MPs. The timing of this is very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is quite an unusual to have an honours list now. It's reignited speculation. We know there's not going to be a general election in May, but speculation that there might be one in June or possibly July, though the government is still saying the autumn is the plan. Most likely dates, November the 14th or 21st. So let's see. But yes, a big row because alongside the awards to people like Sunak loyalist Philip Davis, who becomes a Sir, etc., there's been a knighthood for Mohammed Mansour, who gave £5 million to the Conservative Party very recently. Now, at that time, that was the biggest single donation to the party in over 20 years. That's since been overtaken, of course, by Frank Hester. Remember the row just a few weeks ago about his comments, who gave 10 million. But obviously, Labour and the Lib Dems are up in arms. Richard Tice of Reform says, you know, it's cronyism at its worst. I think it's certainly not a good look. But of course, there's a general election coming. The Conservative Party are very happy to have money coming in to help them with that. But a lot of criticism today for the Prime Minister.
OK, Catherine, for now, thanks very much indeed.
Now, Tory MPs are quitting politics as they find pressures of the job, the hostility on social media and death threats totally exhausting.
Well, at least that's what Dame Andrea Leadsom said to our political editor, Christopher Hope, on his latest podcast.
63 Tory MPs have resigned so far, quitting. Will it go more than...
Not resigned. No, they're standing down
at the
at
election.
the next election. That's a very different matter, Christopher.
It's the first... Sorry, thank you for chiding me. The first planned election since 2015, so maybe expected.
Yes.
Or not, or perhaps an indictment of the party's polling ratings. I mean, will it be more than the 75 who went in 97, do you think?
I mean, I think those standing down this time, it is a function for many people of their time in office. You know, we've already seen statistically your lifespan as an MP is significantly shorter than it used to be. And the reason for that is, of course, the pressures of the job and, of course, the hostility of social media, the death threats, people genuinely find it exhausting. I find it exhausting. I mean, even as a, sunlit uplands person as I am,
yes.
I wake up some days and think, oh, really?
You get daily threats, do you? I mean,
well, yes. I mean, not not sort of daily threats, but I've had death threats. I've had paper death threats with, we know where you live sort of thing. I've had people spitting at me outside Parliament. It's pretty revolting.
Yeah.
And then that idiot in the EU hat who just screams abuse. I'm not even going to say his name. Don't say it, Chris.
I won't.
But, he screams abuse all day long, naming me, just literally publicly. It's just disgusting, frankly, the way politicians are held in such contempt. So I'm not surprised people have had enough at all. And obviously some of them are just fed up because they can see that, their polling situation isn't good. So obviously some of that. But this is nothing like in 2010 with the expenses scandal where half of the Conservatives, more than half, I think, were new people. And that was my intake, 2010.
Yes.
And I think a lot of those people, we've been in politics for 14 years. A lot of us have had enough. And as for those who've been in even longer than that, many of them are just saying, nah, time to call it a day.
Yes.
Interesting, these long-form chats, aren't they, about this? As you get under the skin a little bit more as to what's going on. Maybe will help change your views or modify your views. At least you understand the people behind the politics, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, I really like them, and Christopher Hope gets some really good guests on it as well. So you can get that podcast wherever you usually get your podcasts or on the GB News website.
Yeah, there you go. Now, it is Good Friday, as you should know. But just how significant is it in modern Britain why does it matter? Have you forgotten? I think a lot of people do forget, actually, in 2024. Let's talk to Nottingham University's chaplain, Father David Palmer, who joins us now. Father, good to see you this morning. I mean, we are marking today, aren't we, the crucifixion of Christ. It's a hugely important day.
It is, and if I could just be so bold, I just picked up the figures from the last census, as you didn't have them to hand. 46.2% of the population tick Christian, 37% tick no religion, 6.5% ticked Muslim. So just to have a background there. Good Friday is part of what's called the Easter Triduum, which is a 3-day celebration, hence 3 days, Triduum. Starts last night with the celebration of Maundy Thursday, where the Queen was giving out Maundy money, which is the commemoration of the Last Supper, Jesus instituting the Eucharist, command to love one another. Then it moves into Good Friday, where they leave the upper room, Jesus is taken, betrayed, crucified, and dies. And then it kind of finishes with the Easter Vigil on Holy Saturday, where we celebrate the resurrection. So it's effectively one service, one liturgy spread over 3 days, and it's the most sacred time of the year for Christians.
Do you think we've lost the real meaning of Easter? Has it become too commercialised? I think people think about the Easter weekend now and they think about their lamb roast, don't they, or their chocolate eggs.
Yeah.
They don't actually think about, the crucifixion of Jesus and his resurrection.
I think it's certainly... people aren't as clear about Easter as they are about Christmas, for example. I mean, most people in the culture still know that Christmas is about the birth of Jesus. You'll still hear carols being sung in supermarkets, even. But at the same time, you mentioned Easter eggs and lamb, but of course they come very much from the Christian tradition. The Easter eggs representing the new life, the resurrection, and of course lamb, at the Last Supper, Jesus shared the Passover, which was lamb, and he referred to himself as the Lamb of God who would die for the sins of the world. So even though people may have lost those connections, they're still very much there in our cultural celebration. So that's something.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you say, it's such an important time for those who hold a Christian faith. And as you say, the basis of it all is about loving one another. It's about forgiveness of sins and all these fundamental issues, actually, which, do you think they're being lost in society? We do seem to be becoming more polarised, more angry, perhaps more vicious, less understanding.
I think so, especially the area of forgiveness. Forgiveness is absolutely essential to function as a society. We have to be able to forgive each other. And we have a culture that increasingly does not allow forgiveness. If you say something once wrong somewhere in your past, that's it. You can be hounded out of your career, your position, whatever. We can't function as a society if we hold people completely to account for everything, every transgression, forever, with no redemption. Christianity is exactly the opposite message, that we all sin, we all fall short, we all make mistakes, but there is always a way back. And that's an essential message for a functioning of a healthy society, I think.
How do we live moving forward? Because I was just reminded, because when I was at church on Wednesday, the vicar reminded us of a quote. She thinks it was St Augustine, who said, spread the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. That's quite powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually usually attributed to St Francis, although he apparently never actually said it. But that's irrelevant. The point remains and is absolutely true. Yeah, we need to spread the gospel, and we do need to use words, because we do need to explain, our faith, why Good Friday is important. But absolutely, the heart of it is to love God and to love our neighbour as ourselves. And Jesus said that is the fundamental, primary commandment, and everything else is summed up in that command of love. God is love.
Father, just before we let you go, but I just want to ask you what you thought of the King's Maundy Thursday message yesterday, because we are almost out of time, but it really did strike me, based on what you're talking about there. He talked about service, didn't he? And Jesus washing the feet of the disciples and the service that he gave to them, and how important it is to serve and to extend the hand of friendship.
Absolutely. And the truth is, we find fulfilment in service. Converting is not how we expect it, but the truth is people do find fulfillment in serving and caring and loving for one another. So it's not just a sacrificial thing in one sense. It's who we're created to be and who we flourish as when we choose that path of service.
Father, it's really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Have a great Easter. God bless.
Happy Easter.
Oh, it's something. It's nice to reflect on.
It is nice to reflect on.
Because we often forget what it's all about.
And I was struck actually by the King's message. The reason why I wanted to ask that was I listened to it on the radio yesterday, and I thought, do you know what? That's the first time this year so far I'd actually heard something that had struck me. The real meaning of Easter.
Yeah, that's good. Well,
that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I thought you got the tone exactly right. He is a man of deep faith, isn't he? The King?
He is, as
was clear at the coronation.
Yeah,
yes,
as was his mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Right. We're going to sneak off and have a coffee whilst Alex Deakin brings you the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also. But many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you
go.
Oh, there you go. That was quick.
Very, very nice. Thanks, Alex. Now, it's the final day to see how you could win our massive spring giveaway with gadgets, a shopping spree and £12,345 in cash. It's all up for grabs, but lines do close at 5 p.m. today, so make sure you don't miss out. Here's all the entry details.
It's the final day to see how you could win big.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. I sent a text through my mobile phone. It was just amazing. As soon as it goes into your bank account, it's fantastic.
There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Along with £500 in shopping vouchers, you'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. today. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. today. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to you. Now, still to come for you, should we raise the state pension age? Well, that's going to go down well. We'll debate that next.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This story caught my eye. Lloyds Bank, right, they own the insurance company Scottish Widows. They have now issued some kind of suggested guidance about which word to try and avoid upsetting people or perhaps be as inclusive as possibly can be. One of these words is widows, which really caught my eye because of the amount of stupidity. If you own a brand literally called Scottish Widows, you can't then be saying that the word widows is triggering and offensive. Anyway, Because it is so ludicrous, I need to move over from that part because I want to talk about the broader issue. So many organisations, they have what they call ESG. I'm going to bring a graphic up on the screen in case you're not familiar with what this is. But it's a sense of kind of government, and I would say it's almost like a spine. It underpins so much of what business does today. It stands for environmental, social and governance. And it's around things like how does a business perform when it comes to their environmental impact? How diverse are their employees? How diverse is their board? And so on and so forth. Do you think ESG is a force for good and much needed within business or not, Ben?
It is the introduction of systemic institutionalised prejudice in the United Kingdom, which is going to damage dreadfully our economy, but also our culture, our cohesion as a society, and it's undermining, again, coming back to it, the nation-state that is the United Kingdom. ESG has to be ditched.
Strong words. Judita, do you agree with him?
I don't agree, because I think that with ESG, when you have them, what you're having an increase in is specialists in ESG being introduced into companies to kind of imbricate it into how the company functions. If you're moving in a direction of making your company's functionality be optimized in a way that is inclusive of anyone from any background who has the qualifications to occupy that position, that is a good thing.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. The time is 25 minutes past 8. Now, the state... What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
Oh, dear. It's just because we're talking about pensions. Do you ever think about your pension?
Just the fact I probably can't afford a very good one.
Of course you can.
Well, I'm panicked.
Well, you've got loads of time.
I know, I've got time, but then if you live longer, I want to live in luxury.
Yeah.
So I need
That's the
lots
plan
of money in that pension pot.
You'll need lots. You need millions.
No, I need millions and trillions. Now, the state pension age could rise to 68, even sooner than originally planned, to pay for the triple lock. That's a warning from ex-ministers.
Yes, the former Tory MP Lord Willits says that precedent and evidence so far shows that it really needs to be sped up. So is it fair?
Well, joining us now is pensions consultant Hilary Salt and political commentator with Young Voices UK, Alex Petropoulos. Very good to see you both this morning. Hilary, let's start with you. Do you think that we should raise the pension age?
I don't. It's very easy to have kind of knee-jerk reactions to some of the challenges we face. And I think pensions is one of those areas where everybody needs to be able to plan in for the long term. And so to change things very quickly, I think is very unhelpful. Government is actually committed to give a 10-year notice period for changes in state pension age. And as you say, the state pension age is actually already scheduled to rise to 68. If we were to bring that forward, it wouldn't make any change, today or tomorrow in terms of what the government needs to pay out to support pensioners. And so it's not going to solve some of the issues that people think are the problems facing us today.
What do you think, Alex?
Well, I think that you're right that something needs to be done, but it's not necessarily about what needs to be done today. It's about what needs to be done over the next 10, 20 years, because the way things look, we keep throwing more and more money into the pension system. If we're keeping the triple lock, if we keep funneling money into people who are already on pensions, it's just unsustainable. And I don't see any way in which we keep the current system, we keep things as sustainable without raising the pension age. It's a bad situation to be in, but the people that will be affected by raising the state pension age are people who have voted in a government that called for the triple lock. So it's sort of having your cake and eating it, right?
Oh, Hillary?
So there's two principles behind the points you made there. I think one is that there's this idea that the people of working age support all the people of pension age. Now, that kind of assumes that everybody of working age works and nobody above pension age works. Excuse me, neither of those are true, actually. Lots of people in their 50s and 60s are economically inactive. One solution to some of the challenges we're facing is to grow the productive economy so that we can employ those people in good, well-paid jobs. They can pay more taxes, and that will support both the triple lock and the basic state pension. The other assumption that you're making is that the only dependents in a population are those over pension age. What you tend to find is that older societies tend to have fewer younger people. And if you look at the overall dependency ratio, that's the number of old and young people that we need to support. Actually, that doesn't change quite as much because we have fewer. Those are both the people who call on welfare and healthcare, and both of those. If you take both of those populations together, the change isn't very much.
What do you make of that, Alex?
That's a nice argument, but it only works in the short term. So yes, in the short term, we have fewer younger people and more older people, and so things balance out. But what that means is over 10 and 20 years, the problem just gets worse and worse because fewer younger people mean that you get this sort of generational pyramid, and then things start looking really bad. If you look at places like South Korea, you look like those places with this demographical collapses. Over the longer periods of time, things get a lot worse. But I agree with the point about growth. I find it hard to take a point about growth when it's been pensioners who have essentially sabotaged the country's growth over the last 10 years and saying, no, I don't want to grow. I just want money for me. I just want to focus on helping this one specific group. When so many other groups in the country needed help, needed support, child poverty is at record highs in the last 20 years. That's horrible. And yet somehow we're throwing more and more money to pensioners. We're sticking with the triple lock. We're sticking with these systems that are just helping this one group in the country that have sabotaged the country's growth by voting in for governments and policies.
Well, of course, not everyone within that group votes for the same political party, but it comes down to the argument, and you hear it a lot, and perhaps you'd appreciate it. I know this sounds really patronising, Alex, and forgive me, but when you've paid into the system for 40 or 50 years, then perhaps your attitude changes and say, well, I've put money in, I've supported the generation that came before me. Now it's my turn.
Yeah, I agree, and I understand the sentiment. I just think that we all have to understand as a country, things are going to get worse before they get better. And in order for that to happen, they have to get worse for everyone. And no one group can say, I want to be left out. I don't want to be touched by this sort of period of bad times before we can actually start growing again, before things can get better. I think we have to acknowledge collectively as a country that everyone has to chip in and acknowledge the fact that standards of living might have to lower for everyone. And we can't say, you, this one group, will be safe from that. You, this one group, will be able to carry on living your lives and essentially sacrifice the prosperity of future generations just because you want to keep your quality of life for a few more years.
OK. Alex,
can
Hillary,
I come back?
Thank you both. Well, you can come back. Hillary, if you can do it in 15 seconds, it's all yours.
I would just say I'm not sure it's helpful to pit generations against each other. The people of the younger generations are our children and grandchildren, and actually I think we need lots more intergenerational solidarity, and that's the way to resolve a lot of these issues.
OK, well, it's a nice note to end on. Thank you both very much indeed. And do you know what? I know what most of you at home will be thinking.
Yeah,
write
it down for us and let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, I do think that in terms of state pension, it can't be around for much longer. It's got to be 20, 30 years, they've got to be phasing it out. I think it's becoming unsustainable, I think, which is a problem. I don't know how they can continue it.
No. Well, the last budget did seem to indicate, didn't it, that the government wants to break that link between national insurance and state pensions. So let us know what you think. Send in your views. And do stay with us as well, because Paul Coit is going to be here shortly.
And he's heading towards pension age before most of us.
Yeah,
so we'll get his
very
views
quickly,
on it all.
yes.
the latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Greg Edwards. In Suffolk, the A14 is closed westbound from junction 55, Copdock interchange through to 53, White House interchange because of a police incident. It's also closed on the opposite side just at junction 53 with a diversion via the slip roads. The A1M in Hertfordshire is closed northbound for roadworks through until the early hours of tomorrow morning between junctions 6 and 7. In Somerset at Radstock, the A367 Bath New Road is closed because of an accident. On the trains, disruption to services in and out of Stansted Airport. No Greater Anglia services between Bishop Stortford and Stansted Airport, and also Bishop Stortford and Cambridge, and there's no Stansted Express between Harlow Town and the airport. GWR trains are suspended between Newbury and Westbury because of flooding.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport this morning. Paul's here. Good morning.
Good morning. It always used to be the Easter weekend was when there was loads going on. You get the boat race and then you get the FA Cup semi-final and the Grand National. Often always used to come at the same time, whereas we've got the boat race tomorrow, which is on. I can't hold back my excitement about the boat race.
I bet you can't.
I really can't, especially with the state of that water as well. You've got to be careful.
Get wet.
Yes. The Grand National is in 2 weeks and the FA Cup semi-final is in 3 weeks. So it's not. I kind of like it when they put it all together.
But having said that, there's still lots going on, isn't there?
There is a lot going on.
Should we talk about
Sandro Tonali? Newcastle. You know, it really is not a good story. Sandro Tonali is a fine footballer, Italian footballer, played for AC Milan and moved over to Newcastle. Now, he was found guilty of betting charges, of gambling on matches. This was over in Italy, and there was a ban for 10 months that was set, which actually turned to become a worldwide ban. So it wasn't just playing in Italy. So it affected him playing for Newcastle. But the latest thing is that now he's been charged by the FA for actually doing it here since then. Now, it points in one direction, doesn't it? That's a gambling problem. That certainly has got to be.
Might need a bit of help.
Well, this is it, and it sounds like it's. Does the ban help, or is it someone that actually needs help? That maybe he needs counselling in this situation. It's someone that actually needs help, not just a ban away from football.
Can the FA provide both?
I think they can provide. I think there's probably a way to go, but surely there still has to be a ban in place because it's not allowed. You can't be doing it. So it does. It's a bit of a nasty story, and someone like Paul Merson, who's been through that, and was speaking about Ivan Toney, saying, you know, these bans aren't helping. These people need help because gambling does go on. But, of course, when it comes to professional sport, you've got to keep them completely separate because then we can have insider dealing, etc., etc. So it's not a nice story, but we'll have to see what happens there and whether the FA are going to charge him.
Yeah. OK, Xabi Alonso, is he going to be heading to Liverpool? Because, I mean, he'd be great for the team, wouldn't he?
I think he would. And I think...
he might.
I think there's still a very good chance. There's denials at the moment.
OK.
He's doing extremely well at Ellie's favourite German team, Bayer Leverkusen, who have done extremely well. 10 points clear, ironically, of your favourite is Bayern Munich, so they're 10 points above them. So that's looking at the moment, whereas it's very successful that he's going to do well at Bayer Leverkusen. So if they win the Bundesliga, his stock goes up, everybody wants him. He played for Bayern Munich, he played for Liverpool. So with Jurgen Klopp going, it seems that he would be the perfect guy. But there's talk that he's saying, well, actually, you know what, I'd like to stay with Bayer Leverkusen, but that's someone that's saying,
I think
what are you going to give me?
He's playing his cards right.
What you going to give me? You don't turn down a big job like Bayern Munich or especially Liverpool. So I still don't think that's dead in the water, although people say that it is.
Paul, I hate to tell you.
I'm dead in the water.
We're out of time.
As are you.
But it's been a joy.
Honestly, Ellie, that was just so harsh, the way you did that.
That's all.
You're finished here. That's it. That's the end. You're out.
As Stephen would say, get out.
I will. Have a lovely Easter.
And you.
Don't over.
Yes, happy Easter.
Don't eat too much chocolate.
We'll see. Are you working Bank Holiday Monday?
Of course.
I am too. See you then.
I'll see you.
They roped me in for that one as well.
Yeah. Now, still to come, we're going to be talking about a woman who went to extreme lengths to get her earring back. We'll tell you where it was in just a moment.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Serving police officers, showing that up to 20% of them are thinking about quitting the force and doing so within the next year or two. What on earth is going wrong? Problem, of course, is that those that go will be the experienced ones to be replaced by inexperienced ones. Kevin Hurley, former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Met Police, joins me from his home in Surrey. Kevin, this figure is shocking.
The terms and conditions have really dropped off under Theresa May's, what I would describe as an attack on the police service, where their pay has really dropped off, spending power down about 22% on what it once was. Worse still, the golden handcuffs, which were once the excellent police pension, have been taken away and the pension is now much reduced. The other thing that's killing them is the constant media and activist battering for police officers. Off the back of that one psychopath and the other, if you like, Tinder rapist, everybody now thinks the police are kind of all like that. What that means for the individual patrol officers, they're being given stick everywhere. For example, you know, their bosses left, right and centre are rolling over, oh yes, we're institutionally racist. What that means for a 25-year-old constable working in Balham High Street is everyone screaming at him, you're a racist pig. They get surrounded on the streets when they try and do a stop and search or an arrest. Add to that the fact that the criminal justice system is collapsing. They're tipping out the prisons with early releases. So, because of course there's no prison space, cases are taking years to get to court. They're getting derisory sentences because there's no room in the prisons. All of that's really demoralising for the police.
8:43. Let's see what's in the papers then this morning with our senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and former government advisor Claire Pearsall. Good morning to you both. What's the Star got, Claire?
Or do we want to go with the
kids escaping mafia life?
Yeah, so this is quite interesting. So Italy are taking children into care whose fathers are mafia bosses in order to try and get them away from the mafia life, to let them know that there is a different way of living and get them away from the sort of Don Corleone type influences on their life. And actually they have seen they're taken off to live in sort of secret locations, and they have seen a number of mothers who have then given up on their husband to go and follow their kids and want a separate life away from it all.
Which sounds positive in one sense, but forcibly withdrawing children is problematic in another way, isn't it?
I think it is, but I suppose that you have to have some kind of intervention if you're looking at quite serious criminal activity.
Sort of Cosa Nostra.
Well,
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at the level of sort of serious criminality that children are born into, if they don't know any different, then they're just going to follow along in those footsteps. So to take them out of that and say, there is another way you can live your life, you can do these things, it's not a bad experiment to do.
Especially with the mothers away as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing that seems to be... I mean, that's the most positive thing, because you're then breaking up the families a bit.
But it seems like they're taking the children without the mother, and then the mother's joining later.
That's what it sounds like, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can see the sense in it, but it also leaves me a little bit uncomfortable.
I'm not sure the sort of practicalities of it. This was 150 children, so it's a small sort of look into it, and 30 mothers out of these 150.
It's one gang, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Nigel, what do you think of baby Banksy?
Well, this is extraordinary. This is from the National Records Office of Scotland, who've gone through all the baby names that are coming up. So Banksy is one of them. Alloy, Demon, Jihad makes an appeance too.
How can you call a baby Jihad or Demon? Well, how can because there are bans on some words.
I mean, what's going to happen when they go to school for a start? But Jihad would be a bit of a problem if you were shouting after him. Jihad,
would be.
You get arrested for doing something like that. The boys' names that come up, which you also wouldn't want to have at school, one simply Boy.
No, that can't be legal.
Why wouldn't it be legal?
Well, it's cruel.
Well, I think it's horrible, but
I mean, they can stop you from having... You can't call a child Satan, can you, for example? That's not legal.
Well, in which case, then, you'll be OK with demigod, which is another name for one of the... for boy children.
Demigod Dixon.
Yeah. It's got a certain ring about it, hasn't it? Or you could have Howl. For girls, it's costly, pasty, la or
Pasty,
na.
I think you mean Patsy.
No, I mean pasty.
Was it?
Yeah, it wasn't
pasty.
It was pasty.
Oh, as in pasty.
As in pasty.
I think it was pasty.
Pasty or
As in pale. Who knows?
Oh, see, that's...
Neither
it
are good.
strikes me as cruel to children.
It is cruel.
Yeah.
There should be rules against this.
But on the plus side, that there are, with the recent films that have come out, that Cillian Murphy from Oppenheimer, that's...
Cillian Murphy.
Well, we tested this.
No,
we've got Cillian.
Cillian, it's Irish.
When we put it through the Google...
I'm telling you.
Oh.
It's a hard K, it's Cillian.
OK.
Never trust Google.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy.
And Margot, after Margot Robbie or Barbie.
Oh.
I do like the name Margot.
Yeah, Margot's a nice name. One of my grandchildren's called Margot.
Oh,
yes, but come
all
on.
the old names come
we're
back.
not thinking Margot Robbie, are we? We're thinking Margot from...
I'm thinking Margot.
Good Life.
Margot Ledbetter.
Margot Ledbetter.
Yeah, it absolutely
of,
is.
isn't it?
But I had a rule.
Yeah, I'm with Margot
When
Robbie.
naming my child, I did have a rule. It was the playground to Prime Minister test.
That's a very good one.
Can I yell it across a playground, and can he stand at the dispatch box?
Yes, not if you're called demigod.
There's another one. I've heard a third one on that list. Tom Harwood taught me it. I'll have to ask him.
What's that?
It's playground, Prime Minister, and then there's a third one that he said.
So you've heard a third one, but you don't know what it is.
No, but I'm going to talk to Tom Howard and I'll get back to you.
Text him
And we'll add that to our checklist.
Now, we've got to get to this one because I'm just intrigued. Someone went to extreme lengths, according to the Star, to retrieve an earring from what?
From an emu's pile of poop.
Ew.
So a lady had to search through a wheelbarrow of poo for a silver earring because apparently she was ambushed by the large bird called Char-Char. It's an animal sanctuary in Malmesbury in Wiltshire. So she had to then search through
look at
for
the
this
state
earring.
of it there.
Oh, I would have left it there.
She couldn't find it. She went through the entire wheelbarrow of poo, didn't find it, but did find it on the ground a couple of days later.
No!
But did she work there then? She must have worked there. She can't have kept going back.
Well, I assume so. It doesn't state whether she was just a visitor or whether she worked there, but I mean that's quite something for an earring to go through poo. I mean,
And it's not like it's a massive diamond earring. I was thinking
exactly.
that must
It's
be
not
worth
sort of
a
shiny
fortune.
and worth a
Well, it's
fortune.
not
I should
shiny
imagine
now.
it's certainly not. I mean, it may have
just leave it at
sentimental
that
value.
point. Once you found it, just put it back.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to put that back in your ear.
Well, not exactly.
It was just more the case that she'd been ambushed by an emu, which
Called
just made me
Char-Char.
laugh. Yeah.
Big Bird Char-Char was my favourite.
Well done to her. She's determined. 10 out of 10 for determination. I wouldn't bother for that. I'm afraid I'd have to let that one go.
Yeah, I'd be buying a new pair. Claire, let's talk about fish and chips, shall we? Because lots of people are going to be eating fish today. It's Good Friday.
It is, yeah, Fish on Friday, which is the usual for Good Friday. But apparently by eating fish, eat more than one portion of fish a week is good for your health. And I think we all know that, and people don't eat quite enough fish. It's not fish and chips. This is things like mackerel or tuna, salmon, shellfish. And diets rich in these sources of protein tend to make you a lot more healthy.
So if you batter it and deep fry it, doesn't count.
I'm going to say that I'm not sure you have to have the
chippy is-
chips along with it, which is going to be terribly healthy.
But very tasty.
Or the fried batter. Those things seem to sort of...
But again, very, very tasty. So you can't beat some fish and chips.
So boiled fish is the answer if we all want to save the NHS money.
Yeah, and oily fish. Oily fish is really good
it's
for you.
oily fish, and that's fine. Fish is quite expensive. Also, a lot of people don't particularly like it. I like fish. I eat fish quite a lot, prawns, things like that. But my son won't touch them.
Yeah.
Doesn't like the look of them. Doesn't like the texture of them.
No.
It is one of those things, but it can do some real good for your health if you look at Mediterranean diets and things like that, which is high in fish, especially those oily fishes. Then it's going to... I'm not convinced that it's going to save the NHS up to £600 million a year. I think that's quite a tall order.
Might be a bit more than just...
See, I'm vegetarian, but I wouldn't eat fish even if I was a meat eater.
Really?
Because no,
Don't like it?
Just the smell of it really turns.
Yeah, but then sometimes they're not smelly.
But my dad is the same. So my mum and my brother love seafood. My dad will not, just can't touch it. So I've inherited that from him. I just can't.
Oh, I adore fish.
Smell
Me
of
too.
it.
Yeah.
Oh,
But my
Nothing
mum was the
beats good
same. She
seafood.
didn't like the smell and wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
She'd maybe have some cod every now and again, but that was it. Just the smell of it turned her off.
You're thinking like kippers or something.
No, I'm not. No, any fishy, remotely fishy smell.
What, even just a lovely little white fish?
Even when I had once a bit of seaweed and that, even the seaweed, just that sea smell is
Salty
just,
sea smell.
Now, Nigel, at last, your time has come.
They've named a storm after me. It's absolutely wonderful. Storm Nelson.
It's a solid name.
Is it just? Yeah, but I'm not sure we're actually going to welcome it. It's going to bring a lot of snow, sleet, and plenty of wind. So
When?
That's me. Plenty of wind.
Oh, Nigel.
You've taken my joke there.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
So when are we expecting Nelson?
Oh, it's on its way.
Oh,
It's
dear.
happening now, yes.
No.
It started in Wales, hasn't it? I think Claire's been monitoring the weather for the last
there's been
couple of
snow
days.
across Exmoor and Dartmoor and into Plymouth and up into the southern part of Wales. But also it was really, really windy yesterday.
It's windy, yeah.
It was
Last night,
awful
it was
last
really
night.
bad.
Awful. The
It
trains out
was
to
even windy
Essex
in
were all
London. I
cancelled.
mean, London was actually... I haven't known it like that for ages. Where we are we're out in the sticks. I mean, there it was very windy, but then I thought when I get into the capital, it'll be OK, but it wasn't.
No, it was bad last night. And obviously, we've got the Great Easter Getaway. So it's the worst possible timing.
Of
There's going to be,
course.
was it 16 million cars on the road tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think people start today as well, don't they?
They do.
By getting off, so you've got all the roads are going to be patched. A lot of the train services have closed down.
Many are
for
already
engineering
cancelled.
Well, they always
works.
do,
I
don't
mean,
they?
you know, it's the total gridlock of everybody getting away.
Yeah.
But some of us have to work.
All the overhead wires will be down in the wind.
Oh, everything.
That'll be the next
Stay
thing.
at home. Have an Easter egg. Nigel, in the Express, this one, a nice picture of the Queen giving out the Maundy money.
Yes, I mean, that obviously, with King Charles still going through his cancer treatment, he couldn't do it. He will go to the traditional Sunday service, he says. But yes, it was Camilla standing in. I think that in the royal family at the moment, it's sort of all hands to the pumps, really, while both Kate and the King are out
Yes,
of
but aren't they
action.
doing a good job? And actually, when you think, we've been talking a lot about the pressures on William having to hold things together, the pressures on the Queen, actually, with her husband ill.
Given, in a sense, she never came from that background. I mean, at least with someone like Charles, he's grown up with it. He's actually he's brought up to do those very things. She's learning all this from a fairly sort of standing start, and she is doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. It's the very best of British, I think.
It is, and it's that sense of duty, which is what you were talking about with the father who was on, the sense of duty, and she has filled that role. But I do find it really strange when anybody says, oh, the Queen was at the church service, and I still have the image of our late Queen.
Yeah.
You have to sort of check yourself sometimes. It's a really, really strange phenomenon.
It'll
but I
take
think Queen Camilla is doing a very, very good job of this.
Excellent.
She is.
Right, Nigel, Claire, it's been a joy. Thank you very much indeed.
Let's take a look at the weather for you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also. But many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Greg Edwards. On the trains, no Stansted Express services between Harlow Town and Stansted Airport, and no Greater Anglia services between Bishop Stortford and Stansted Airport, and also between Bishop Stortford and Cambridge because of overhead wire problems. GWR services are suspended between Newbury and Westbury because of flooding. Some long-distance trains may divert. On the roads at East Lothian, the A1 remains closed westbound at Wallyford because of an accident, with delays in the area. In Suffolk, on the A14, the eastbound side is closed at junction 53 at Whitehouse Interchange because of a police incident. Traffic's diverting via the slip roads. At West Buckland in Devon, the A361 is closed after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Good Friday, the 29th of March. Today, the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove hits out at Thames Water after bosses ask to raise bills by 40% to avoid nationalisation.
Obscene cronyism. Sunak sparks an honours row after awarding one of the top Tory donors a gong.
The West End celebrates the holy month of Ramadan, but of course that crosses over with Easter weekend. Is that controversial, displaying Ramadan lights over Easter in the capital?
Ex-ministers warn state pension age could rise to 68 to pay for the triple lock. We're asking, is that fair?
It's another day of heavy showers this Good Friday, but as we go through the Easter weekend, it should turn a little drier and just a little bit warmer. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Loads on pension age.
Oh, that's where you're going.
Getting in touch. Yeah.
I was going to talk about Easter.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, but there's more on pension age, actually, so let's go.
Kevin says, it's funny how you go on about pensions. It's £200 a week. You don't mention the unemployed who pay nothing in. Well, no, but they can't pay anything in if they're unemployed. But people who are able to work should work. Martin says it may be OK retiring at a great age if you sit behind a desk for a living, but if you do a hard physical job, you probably won't reach your retirement age. And that's a really valid point, actually. People who do manual labour, blue-collar work, or however you want to phrase it, they're not going to be able to keep working till they're 68, 70, 75, or whatever it might go up to in the years to come. That's a really good point.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And Jennifer makes a good one too, saying today's pensioners were told the state pension would be enough to live on when they reached pension age. Now we know it just isn't. Whilst a private pension scheme is for the benefit of the individual, they're also a huge source of investment in trade and industry, funding the economy. If these pensioners had kept their money under the mattress, the country would be even worse off today.
Peter says it's fine for the younger people to say the rise in the age of retirement. But when you reach your 60s, some of us find it hard to do certain things, so this needs to be taken into consideration. Look, that young people should have a voice and should be heard and all the rest of it, But when it's that old argument of saying, well, I've worked for 50, 60 years in some cases, and, you know, now's my time.
Yeah, and you've worked hard your whole life. I understand that argument.
I find that very hard to disagree with.
Yes.
But anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, Michael Gove has dubbed Thames Water bosses a disgrace after the firm asked to increase customers' bills by 40% to plug a major funding gap.
For years now, we've seen the customers of Thames Water taken advantage of by successive management teams that have been taking out profits and not investing as they should have been. So the answer is not to hit the consumers. The answer is for the management team to look to their own approach and ask themselves why they're in this difficult situation. And of course, the answer is because of serial mismanagement for which they must carry the can.
Well, the firm's bosses have admitted it could face the risk of emergency nationalisation as the cash crisis deepens.
Well, shareholders have refused to give the company £500 million of extra financing, describing the rescue plan as uninvestable.
Well, shareholders want the regulator to increase customers' bills by up to 40% over the next 5 years.
Well, we are now joined by the chair of the Labour Party, Annalise Dodds. Really good to see you this morning, Annalise. How would the Labour Party deal with the Thames Water scandal?
Good morning. Well, we'd have a very different approach to that taken by the government. And I have to say, I just saw that clip that you played of Michael Gove talking about this, where he said this problem had been building for years and years. Well, of course, we've had the Conservatives in government for 14 years, and it definitely has been building for 14 years because they've watered down the regulations so that companies like Thames Water could get incredibly highly indebted, and they haven't done what Labour's been calling for, which is for there to be a ban on bonuses for polluting water company bosses and to make sure there's automatic monitoring of these outflows and that there are automatic fines and, if necessary, criminal penalties as well. So, I find this government response of almost suggesting they've only just found out this is an issue pretty extraordinary. Labour would have a very different approach to this, just as I said, because we need to be cleaning up our rivers and our beaches, and it shouldn't be the payers of bills who are stung as a result of this governmental failure.
But who should sort this out then now? Because it's one thing to look back on what's built up. It's another thing to say, well, this is how we solve it. And in terms of Thames Water, would you look at renationalising, taking 51%, which of course would mean giving taxpayers money to shareholders, or would you just let it run its course, go bankrupt, and let someone else sort it out?
So there are talks that are ongoing about exactly what should happen with that company. It's right those talks happen. Of course, we'll be looking at them very closely. And as I understand it, there are those different options that are on the table. But I certainly don't think the government should be sitting back now. We really need to change the rules around this. We need to ensure that, as I set out before, you don't have value leaching out through huge bonuses being paid to bosses, even at the same time, while their companies are heavily polluting our rivers, while they're not actually delivering the services that people expect. So Labour would ban those bonuses right now. We would make sure also, as I said, that there was automatic monitoring of these sewage outflows into our rivers. So there could be really substantial changes that could happen right now. I mean, we actually managed to make sure there was a vote on some of those changes not so long ago in Parliament. Unfortunately, the Conservatives refused to support those measures. And I think they really should be looking again at this because of the huge problems that we've got in the water industry.
I wanted to ask you about your colleague, Angela Rayner, who's on the front page of many of the papers this morning. She's under pressure to reveal the truth about those controversial property dealings, and also comes as Greater Manchester Police are reassessing its decision not to investigate allegations that she gave false information on official documents. Are you confident that your colleague hasn't committed electoral or tax fraud?
So I have got confidence in Angela Rayner. So has Keir Starmer. I'm very proud that Angela Rayner is the deputy leader of the Labour Party. I think she's been doing an incredible job. In fact, yesterday she was setting out our plans to make sure that we really do see genuinely communities levelling up, that we've got local economic plans, that we have those longer term financial settlements for local government. So now I think that Angela's been doing a very good job, and I also know she's someone who does the right thing, and I'm sure that will be the case here as well.
And I know, look, it's very unfair in a way when someone, when someone's done nothing wrong, as Angela Rayner claims, to then say, well, I've still got to provide documentation into the public domain to prove that. That seems unfair, right? But it's what you sign up for, in a sense, being a politician, especially a politician wanting to get elected into government. It would be easier then, wouldn't it, if that legal advice she's been given, saying everything is fine and above board, if she published that? And then it puts it to bed.
Well, this is, of course, advice that's been provided on the understanding that it would be confidential. So that's not something that is routinely shared publicly. Angela obviously has been very upfront about the fact that, yes, she did purchase a council house. Now, I'm speaking to you from a former council house. I didn't purchase it myself. It was actually two owners before me who purchased it. There'll be many people watching this programme now who purchased their council house, who live on council estates. I don't think that's something to be ashamed of. And quite frankly, I think lots of people would be saying, well, hang on, why have we got this huge focus from the Conservatives on the finances of one individual when our family finances overall, people up and down the country, are really under pressure when we're not seeing any action on the cost of living? Why don't we have a Conservative government talking about those issues? I think it's because they don't have a plan, but Labour does have a plan in those areas.
What did you make of the Easter honours list that was published last night?
Well, I think I probably had the same response as many members of the public, a response of astonishment. You know, you either would feel that perhaps Rishi Sunak is so arrogant that he doesn't mind anymore what the public think, or perhaps he's demob happy, he believes that he's on the way out. Either way, I think there's a huge amount of concern about the fact that there seems to be an almost automatic pass now under the Conservatives, and particularly the individual, Mr Mansour, who was last January, the biggest ever donor to the Conservatives, £5 million at that stage, the biggest individual donation that had been given, then seeming to have that automatic pass through to receiving an honour under Rishi Sunak. I think, if anything, it demonstrates yet again his weakness, that he's focused on internal party issues all of the time rather than on the needs of our country.
Yeah, but the issue with this particular individual, and yes, he has been a big donor to the Conservative Party, but his appointment has not been blocked by the Appointments Commission, has it? And yet, of course, the Cash for Honours scandal, which happened in, 2006, 2007 under Tony Blair, now that was a great big hoo-ha, but of course those appointments by Tony Blair were ultimately blocked by the Appointments Committee.
Absolutely, and Labour has learned from that. Those lessons have been learned. We think it's really important that we have a system that is beyond public questioning and reproach. And I'm afraid what Rishi Sunak has done here is not beyond that public questioning and reproach. And it does look like, as I said now, there is that automatic pass-through. But of course, this is in the context of so many scandals about who is supporting the Conservative Party to an enormous extent. We've had all those, of course, situations with Frank Hester, that huge Tory donor, as well, with the Conservatives refusing to hand back the money that he gave them, even after it was shown that he had made those appalling racist and sexist remarks about a Labour MP. So, you know, clearly there's a big Conservative problem here. We've got to clean up politics. That's why Labour said we'd have an independent Integrity and Ethics Commission. I think the public looking at this is really fed up.
OK, we've got to leave it there. We're out of time, sadly. Annalise Dodds, as always, it's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Now we're joined by our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. What did you make of what Annalise Dodds had to say, Catherine?
Yes, interesting on water, wasn't it? She was saying ban bonuses, automatic monitoring of sewage spills, etc. Worth saying, of course, that although water was nationalised by Margaret Thatcher, Labour was in power from 1997 to 2010 and didn't reverse any of this either. Also worth saying, of course, that when Sir Keir Starmer became Labour leader, he was doing so, promising to do many of the things that Jeremy Corbyn had said he would do, including nationalisation of rail and water. They have rowed back on that now, the Labour Party. But I think one of the fundamental problems is the fact that now over 70% of the British English water industry is under foreign ownership. So in the case of Thames Water, it's largely owned by Canadian pension funds, by Abu Dhabi and China. So these foreign owners don't care particularly about the fact that British people need the infrastructure, need the investment, but very happy to cream off the profits.
OK, Catherine, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning. We have had a response from Thames Water, from their boss, actually, who says, I'd like to reassure our customers that despite this announcement, it is business as usual for Thames Water. Our 8,000 staff remain committed to working with our partners in the supply chain to provide our services for the benefit of our customers, communities and the environment. I guess some people may disagree with that.
Yes.
It's a tough one, and so we've been talking about it a lot this morning, and we didn't get a clear answer, actually, from Annalise Dodds as to what you would do in the immediate term. You know, would you nationalise?
No, I think it's a difficult one. No, but would you get a clear answer?
No. I thought you were making an executive decision there.
On behalf of the Labour Party.
Or would you let it go bankrupt? But that would mean a private investor would have to come in and take it over. You'd sell it for a knockdown price. The issue with nationalisation, Nigel Nelson was calling for that earlier on, is that would give government control. What it also means is the government would have to buy out some of the shareholders. Yeah. So those shareholders who've been, making a profit would then get government money, our money, for the government to buy in, which is all gets a bit controversial, doesn't it?
It does a bit. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, on the views, most of you believe that nationalisation is the answer.
Yeah.
Would that be fair to say?
Yes, I think so.
Based on views today, that's what you seem to think. But do keep them coming in on that or any of the other stories talking about today. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has had to drop his student ideas when he became leader of the Labour Party. I think that's quite a damning statement, actually. Student ideas until he was the Labour leader. Anyway, but he's had to drop them to prove he can be Prime Minister.
Well, that's what close ally Jenny Chapman had to say to our political editor, Christopher Hope, on his latest podcast.
The flip-flopping, though, that Keir Starmer's criticised for, which you can do in opposition, is that a strength, do you think?
I mean, I see it as starting out with a prospectus when you are a brand new, straight into a leader of the opposition, and then you've seen Keir evolve from that, taking over the burning skip of a party off Jeremy Corbyn to now being a credible candidate for Prime Minister.
He jumped his ideas. He got the power, didn't he? When you were supporting him as the leadership candidate, the tuition fees, abolishing universal credit, defending EU freedom and movement, and he's dropped those.
Because he wants to be Prime Minister. This is a guy that's serious about his politics. He's not there, as we've just discussed, to lead a protest movement. His job is to say to the British public, trust in me, I will look after your future, your pensions, your mortgages, your kids' futures. These are serious, big things that we want to be trusted with. You cannot have someone who just goes around saying things, that maybe they've believed when they were a student, or maybe, things that are popular within the Labour Party. You've got to have a credible offer for the whole country, and that's a journey that Keir, I'd say there has been a journey. I'm completely upfront about that. Yeah. But I'm really pleased to have seen it.
It's working in the polls.
Yes.
I mean, I've been struck by how, on security, he's been in lockstep with the government, and I think that was really important because the nadir for many people during Jeremy Corbyn's time as leader was over Salisbury when he questioned whether it was Russia behind the poisoning. Yes. And anyone involved in Whitehall and security in this country would say that was a moment at which everyone took a breath and thought, can this guy be Prime Minister? And it seems that even on, and it's been hard on Israel and Gaza, he has stayed with the government and hasn't really gone ahead of where they are on the big foreign policy matters.
Yes.
I think that's been noticed by a lot of people.
And I think that's been important because you need to show that you can be responsible and you are not going to play politics with something like Ukraine. You know, you are not going to play games with this. There is a national interest which is higher and above and much more important than your party political interest. And that is one of the reasons that Keir Starmer has gained the respect of the British public for that. And I think it's what he believes as well. You know, his background as a chief prosecutor, he understands how criminal gangs work, what terrorism is really all about and how you prevent it. And I think that international perspective that he has on those issues that are about keeping people safe means that, you know, he isn't someone who thinks, right, what's in it for me? Where's the red line between me and the Tories on this issue? Yeah. It's what is the right thing to do.
Just want to bring you some breaking news on that attack on a train with a very large knife, a zombie knife style thing. We talked about it a lot yesterday. We're getting word from the police, from British Transport Police, that a 19-year-old man has now been charged with attempted murder and possession of an offensive weapon in relation to that stabbing in Beckenham Junction on March the 27th. He's called Raheem Thomas. And he's going to appear at Wimbledon Magistrates Court. So we'll keep you up to date with that, of course.
Now, it's the final day to see how you could win our massive spring giveaway. £12,345 in cash and lots of other goodies as well. Lines close at 5 p.m. today, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details.
It's the final day to see how you could win big.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. I sent a text through my mobile phone. It was just amazing. As soon as it goes into your bank account, it's fantastic.
There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Along with £500 in shopping vouchers, you'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. today. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. today. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it?
Amazing.
Extraordinary. And also, she was unflappable, apparently, the Princess Royal.
She's
just
brilliant.
refused to get out of the car and said, I'm not going anywhere. Extraordinary. Well, Jim Beaton was awarded the George Cross for protecting the Princess, and delighted to say joins us now, along with the former head of Royalty Protection, Di Davis. Jim, you won't remember, but I met you some time ago at the Imperial War Museum when Princess Anne was opening an exhibition to do with the George Cross, and you were there reunited with her. And you told me then what great admiration you had for the Princess, cool under fire, but you didn't do so badly yourself.
It was probably my job. And also, I had a wee bit of police training, not very much, but a little bit. whereas Princess Anne had nothing. And yet, the way she displayed it, you would have thought she'd been highly trained to deal with any type of that situation.
Even though you'd had some training, you took 3 bullets for the princess. You effectively stood between her and a deranged gunman.
Well, I was supposed to be a protection officer, really, so I just tried to fuddle about. You must remember that back in 1974, there was no communication, and we were extremely lucky that Michael Hills, who was outside Clarence House and nearby, had got one of the fast police radios, or radios on his shoulder, so he was able to send a message out. Otherwise, we would have just been relying on the good old public to phone in and say there's something happening.
Yeah.
So times have changed drastically.
Now, of course, it is Easter this weekend. You'll all be tucking into Easter eggs. Well, spare a thought for this local shop in Orkney. It's all turned out very well. They've raised over £3,000 for charity, but they did accidentally order more Easter eggs than the entire island's population.
Yes, the owner of Sinclair General Store, Dan Dafford, made the blunder because instead of ordering 80 chocolate eggs, he ordered 80 cases. And he joins us now. How many in a case, Dan?
9 in a case.
Oh, right. Oh, well, that
so
works
that's
out
700
quite
and something, is it?
Yeah, a few eggs.
720 eggs, and there's how many people on the island?
Roughly 500.
Oh, right. Yes, we see the issue.
Yeah. It's a bit of an issue there. So you decided what, to cut your losses and what, donate them all for charity?
Yeah, something like that. So we tried to come up with some inventive ways to try and shift them on. So one of those ways that seemed to have caught the imagination of the public was a 100 egg giveaway with all proceeds going to the RNLI.
It's a brilliant idea. Has the community really got behind you then?
Yeah, the community locally and further afield. It's been quite shocking about how far it's travelled and how well it's done.
Why did you choose the RNLI? That means a lot, doesn't it, to you and the community there?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So firstly, our long-serving shop manager, Barbara Moody, she's the Sandy branch president of the RNLI. So they do annual fundraisers in order to raise money, and just generally being a kind of small island community, the RNLI is something that's very close to our heart.
Oh, I bet, and there'll be plenty of volunteers and things, I imagine, on the island as well, because it's all entirely volunteer-run, isn't it, the RNLI, the amazing life-saving work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, it's just great to be able to try and help their cause. So, yeah, initially we wanted to try and get to £200, but things have kind of picked up pace, and that kind of moved to 300, 400. We've currently sold 3,500 tickets for the raffle. Wow. And the guys over at Nestle have said they'll double whatever we raise. So we're now on a big push to try and get to 10,000, double to 20,000. So
wow,
this is kind of where we're at and what we're looking for help with right now.
Well, good luck with it, Dan. Yeah. We think it's an excellent idea.
Oh.
Happy Easter to you.
Yeah, happy Easter. Well done.
You guys, thank you.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Right, that's it from us. Up next, though, it's Britain's Newsroom. See you soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. The Easter weekend is here and the weather looks like slowly turning a little drier and a little warmer, with many of us likely to have a fine day on Sunday. Far from fine out there today, although some of us starting off with a bit of sunshine, but showers already in some places, and the showers just get going more widely from late morning through into the early afternoon. Heavy, even thundery showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain all day, but when the showers come along, hail, thunder is also possible. Temperatures maybe just sneaking up a bit compared to yesterday, but still feeling cool when the showers hit and because of that brisk wind. That will continue to blow showers across the UK through this evening, and overnight they should tend to fade in many locations, but we'll keep some going across the west coast of Wales, southwest England, and some continuing to push into parts of Scotland also. But many central and eastern parts of England turning dry and clear. Pretty chilly as well, temperatures well down into single digits to start Saturday. But we should start with a bit of sunshine on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, fine over the Midlands and eastern England in particular. And generally, although there will still be showers around tomorrow, not as many as today. A better chance that most of tomorrow will be dry and bright, particularly across parts of southern England. Could see some more rain returning to the southwest later on, but a bit more in the way of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer. And for many of us, Sunday looks decent too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Greg Edwards. The Stansted Express isn't running between Harlow and Stansted Airport, and no Greater Anglia services between Bishop Stortford and